I have a moo cow, a new cow, a true cow named Caroline.
Moo.
Wow, pulling the most beloved song of the musical.
Yeah.
Most important piece.
I genuinely cackled when I made the realization that they're all the same song every time she does a new act.
Yeah.
Maybe vaudeville should come back. Maybe she had a point.
I have hot takes on vaudeville. I cannot wait to talk about this. I don't even want to do banter up top. We have so much to discuss with this.
I mean, that's fine. I think that we can skip banter if you really want to. But I do want to say to the listeners before we dive in.
But we can skip banter.
Congratulations, Adam. That you probably know because you saw the episode title. But today's musical is a beloved classic that's name is unfortunately a racial ethnic slur. We're going to do our best to avoid saying it unnecessarily, but we're going to have to say the title, I'm sure, and the character it refers to at some points in the podcast. So apologies in advance for the fact that we're going to be using an outdated and offensive term in the course of this discussion.
Mm-hmm. Most of the time I just refer to her as Louise. So
yeah, for most of the musical, she is known as Louise. So that's totally fine. But it's based on a real person, and this was their actual name that they adopted. So that's the situation. Sorry to start us out on a bummer note, but it feels important to address right up top. Do you want to do banter now, Adam, to get us back?
Are you in a good bantering mood now, Adam?
Energy? Yeah.
No, I want to go right into it. Okay. My challenge this week, I have to summarize this stupid fucking show. It's really long. This summary that I wrote is long. I know I'm going to go over, and it is what it is. I'm not rewriting this. So
we'll give an extra minute just for sound time.
For Sondheim, yeah.
All right, Adam, this is your 1 minute summary and your time starts now.
The vaudeville era is dominating the American stage, and Rose Havoc is determined to make her daughter June a star on it. June is talented, whereas her sister Louise lacks the performing ability, but is forced to participate in the shows to support her sister. On the way from LA back home to Seattle, they meet Herbie, a man with connections in the industry, and immediately he takes a liking to Rose and her daughters. They go across America from city to city with baby June and her act. Over time, as the girls age, interest begins to wane, and baby June has become Dainty June. At a crossroads, June quits the troupe to be eloped, leaving Louise forced by Rose to become the star of the act. However, America has started to move on from vaudeville with the advent of the motion picture becoming more and more popular, but Rose still has dreams for Louise. In Wichita, they have been booked for their act at a burlesque theater, and while Rose is initially hesitant, she realizes that they must perform in order to make enough money to survive. At the end of their run, she has agreed to leave show business behind and marry Herbie with Louise in tow, but a chance opportunity sees Louise performing burlesque for the first time. Herbie leaves the relationship, disgusted at who Rose has proven herself to be. However, Louise blossoms and becomes the most famous stripper in America, Gypsy Rose Lee. Later, in Louise's dressing room, Rose stops by and finds that her role as not only manager but mother is completely unneeded. She lashes out and the two have a fight. Rose takes one last look at the stage, realizing that everything she did for the girls was actually for herself, and Louise catches her at the end of the revelation. The two seemingly reconcile, and the film ends on a hopeful note as the mother and daughter forge forward in understanding and a newfound relationship.
Wow. 1 minute and 40 period. 40.
Period.
I feel like, it wasn't you could have done it shorter.
It was definitely superfluous for sure.
Yeah.
But doing something in a self-serving way is very on theme. So I think that's really great.
I really Mama Rosed this
you Mama
Rosed it all the way.
Rose's summary. Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to start. So my relationship is that I have been in Gypsy.
Wow.
This is weird because Gypsy is not famously a big chorus heavy show. In case you watched the film, you may have noticed that. I was in, there's like 3 sections of like the act. So I was one of the kids in the audition in the first scene. And then and this was at St. Mary's, which is the girls' school that's across from Notre Dame. I was in the first scene, and then I was one of the boys in the Baby June segment before we get swapped out to the Dainty June segment.
Okay.
With the strobe light. So it wasn't a lot, but it was fun, and I had the hugest crush on the girl who played Baby June. Her name was Krista Thompson. I loved her.
She sounds so wholesome.
She's very sweet, and she had the she did like the perfect ringlet, like Shirley Temple curls for it. It was great. Great. Mm-hmm. I was obsessed with her. Probably it was really not that I had a crush, but I just wanted to be her, to be honest. I was just like, ah! But it's weird because I don't think about this musical a lot, because while I was in it, it's so small. Like my thing in it was so small that I don't really have like memories of it apart from like Krista, but I have been in this, so there you go.
Amazing.
RJ?
I first came across this musical when I came in late to musical theater around high school. That was when Patti LuPone won the Tony for her performance. So I saw her performance at the Tonys. I was like, who is?
At this point, it's the first half of your life, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So early.
No, first half. You're saying late in life.
Oh, damn. Caught in my own act.
I think you're old now, RJ.
Yeah.
I was with, wait. I have to say, I was with some friends at a wedding who I went to high school with. So we're all the same age. And somebody was telling me how she plays on a soccer league, and somebody got in trouble because there was a 15-year-old on the team and it's supposed to be adults only. Mm-hmm. And she was like, this kid was crushing us. And I said, yeah, he's literally half your age. And she her eyes got so wide. She had such a moment of realization that a 15-year-old is half as old as she is.
Actually not. Well, you're not peers. Okay.
You're not. Really, really not peers. Yeah.
And I knew Patti LuPone to an extent, but that was like, oh my God, this is a powerhouse diva. So that's how I got obsessed with that song. She performed Everything's Coming Up Roses at the Tonys, and then through like listening to clips and the album, that's how I found Rose's Turn, and then went on a gay spiral, listened to every single version of Rose's Turn by every single diva that played her on the stage.
Of which there have been many.
Plenty. Yeah. Plenty of Rose's Turns. So I actually sang that song at a like cabaret in Orlando for like a birthday of one of my directors. Then he wrote a drag character for me. He famously put me in drag for the very first time, and so I performed it as that character. So it was Blessica's turn, and just basically was like, you wrote me as a side character, but I also have wants and needs. And then that show that he wrote that character for me, I auditioned by singing the Dainty June Farm Boy song. So I did the New Cow Moo Cow. I believe I brought up stuffed animal as the cow. So that's my background. I love the hits. It's the bops.
But you've never seen it.
This was my first time seeing the full shebang. I've seen clips of numbers, so this is my first time seeing like the actual story in between the numbers that connected all of it. Because the songs definitely feel like, I mean, it's kind of like a vaudeville act in that way of like the songs feel like you could watch them as
well. Some are diegetic and some are non-diegetic.
Oh my God, we're dropping the terms.
Dropping the terms.
Yeah.
Take a drink, Mom. Molly.
I'm in a similar place to RJ where I hadn't actually watched this all the way through ever before. I knew the general plot, and I knew the famous songs from it and had seen, clips of people performing it, et cetera, et cetera. But it lived in one of those spaces in my brain of like, it felt like a musical I knew already, even though I hadn't actually ever sat down and consumed it. Yeah.
Like just from like the discourse people talk about it, how much it's referenced in other works.
Right. It's so beloved. Yeah.
Yes. It's so beloved. And you just know it's like, it's about, like an overbearing stage mom. Like, and you kind of just like, okay, I understand the show.
RJ once cast me as an overbearing stage mom in a film that he produced in college. We all know the type.
We all know. Oh my God, that was so long ago. What show?
So long ago.
Was that in?
It was the film. There was like that thing where you could like sign up and they would give you a camera.
We did two. We did two. One was like you doing the different Broadway divas.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the second year that we did it. I don't remember.
It had to have been sophomore year.
Yeah, it was freshman and sophomore year. The freshman year was when we did all the different
Freshman year was divas, yeah.
Wow. I wonder if that Vimeo
I did an impression of...
Maybe.
Katharine Hepburn.
No, I did an impression of Kristen Wiig doing an impression of Katharine Hepburn. Yeah. That's how removed we were from the actual person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't say this. I had never seen the movie until last night. I did not mention that. I know the show.
All of us. Yeah. So all of us were first time watching. And there's two versions of the movie, right?
There's a Bette Midler version that was a TV movie?
Yes.
Okay.
In 93.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, but it was all of our first time watching, I think, any version of the movie. Yeah.
Filmed adaptation. Yes. So Gypsy is based on Gypsy Rose Lee, the performer, her memoir called Gypsy, a Memoir. It was released in 1957, which is, okay, so released in 1957, it details June and Louise's early life on the road, culminating in Louise. It actually ends when she's about to board a train to head to Hollywood for the first time to like go be in motion pictures. But in actuality, her motion picture career was not that storied. Like she was in she was in a few things, but she was in very small parts, to the extent that she considered like not even billing herself as her stage name, just billing herself as Louise Havik, because she was like so embarrassed that the parts she was getting was so small because of how famous she was generally outside.
Yeah. So wait, so was the biography released midway through her life, so she didn't know at that time?
It technically is it's a memoir. I shouldn't say it's an autobiography, but she did write it. Then this memoir is turned into 2 years later. It's turned into Gypsy, a Musical Fable, which is the full title, which I didn't realize that was the full title of the musical. Music is by Julie Stein, lyrics by Stephen Sondheim, and book by Arthur Lawrence. Arthur Lawrence we had discussed with West Side Story. Stephen Sondheim we'd also discussed with West Side Story. And Julie Stein, funny girl.
Okay.
In 1959, producer David Merrick reads the memoirs in Harper's Magazine, and he approaches Rose Lee for the rights. Jerome Robbins signs on and brings Leland Hayward on as co-producer. Ethel Merman is attached to the role of Rose, and she'd always wanted to work with Leland Hayward as producer. And then Arthur Lawrence agrees to write the book only when he realizes the story isn't just a biography, it's really like a story about like a mother like living vicariously through her children. Cole Porter and Irving Berlin turned down the option to write the music and lyrics. And so Jerome Robbins asks Stephen Sondheim, who agrees, but Merman was hesitant about a new composer, because this would have only been his second thing. He had just done West Side Story before, and again, he only did lyrics. He'd never done a score before. So they get Julie Stein to do the music, and then Sondheim just does the lyrics only. And Oscar Hammerstein actually pushes Sondheim to accept this deal, because he initially was like, I don't want to just be stuck as a lyrics guy. And then from here on out, he's music and lyrics for the rest of his career. So suck it up.
Suck it up. Just one more, girl. Just get that check, okay?
Get the damn check so you can furnish. By the way, Stephen Sondheim's condo is on the market. You can own Stephen Sondheim's condo.
7 million townhome.
Or is it a townhome? Yeah. It's a townhome.
Wow.
So I think if we all pitch in.
If we all 6 listeners of us who are listening to this show pitch in.
All the elder millennials that are listening, all the elder queers.
Yes. We'll run it as an Airbnb. We'll be landlords.
Yes.
We're going to go full investment property. Between tryout and premiere, 7 songs were cut, and there's a lot of songs in this, so that tells you that there was even more than we could have had.
Yeah.
I really don't have anything interesting to say about the musical in the original production. I was trying to keep it tight so we can get to the
felt like there was a lot of music in the movie?
In the musical, there's more.
Oh, in the musical, there's more. Okay. So
there's like 3 or 4 songs that are cut from the film.
Okay.
Then this musical has been revived on Broadway 4 times.
Wow.
And it's had 2 West End adaptations. So 1973, Angela Lansbury opens it in the West End. Then it comes over for its first revival on Broadway with Angela Lansbury. The end changes. They change the ending where Louise has a sarcastic laugh at Rose's dream and walks off stage. Rose turns back to the audience somberly as the footlights slowly go out on her unfulfilled dreams. Very, very heavy.
Yeah.
1989, Tyne Daly is Rose in the revival. I'm obviously only just saying who is Rose in the revival. Nobody cares who the Louises are. And that goes back to the original ending. 2003, Bernadette Peters. The ending changes once again to Rose being the last one out through the stage door, looking back at the stage, and then she chooses to slowly close it behind her. Metaphor. 2008, Patti LuPone is Rose, and they go back to the 1974 Angela Lansbury ending.
Oh, somber.
And this is also the iconic time when Angela Lansbury screams. Patti LuPone screams, "Stop taking pictures" during the middle of the show.
Stop.
If Angela Lansbury had lost her cool and yelled at people to stop taking pictures, that would have really been a moment.
Yeah.
I saw someone take 4 pictures.
Now, here's what's crazy about that story. I just played the audio for the listeners.
Okay.
Here's what's crazy about that story. That person was hired by the show to take pictures during that show. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I never knew that.
Yes. That's the part of the story that no one knows. But yes.
Well, there was like a scandal at one point on Broadway because somebody was using a device to caption the...
Yes,
that was Hadestown.
Somebody yelled. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I just think we probably shouldn't yell at audience members even in the worst possible scenario. I feel like it's better to err on the side of better to err on the side of be an actor and just get through it.
Yeah.
And then be annoyed later.
The Patti LuPone version is also, I believe, when Laura Benanti was Louise. I know you said you don't care about the Louises, but I love Laura Benanti.
Yes, and she won the Tony for that.
She did win the Tony for that performance. And then in 2015, the West End revival was with Imelda Staunton, currently the queen in the crown.
My country.
And my country.
Louise, sing out Louise.
And they changed the ending yet again to them walking off, Louise with her arm around the back of her mother as it's now her turn to take care of Rose.
Oh, this reveals so much about how nobody knows how this relationship should end.
Yeah.
Does she deserve forgiveness at the end?
Yes.
Yeah.
And even there's a whole section in the Wikipedia page that has like quotes from different people who played the role of being like, because Patty's take is like, she's not a monster. She does monstrous things, but she's not a monster. She's just like a flawed, complex character. While it's like Bernadette's whole thing is like, it's actually just trauma from being left as like a young girl from her own mother. So it's like just hurt people is like her take. And like, I mean, I guess it could all be the same idea, but it's interesting what people find the most fascinating part of Rose's character.
Yeah.
The original run was nominated for 8 Tonys and won 0.
Wow.
Because the other musical that was that year was The Sound of Music.
Okay.
Okay. So, and it was famously Rodgers and Hammerstein's last musical on Broadway. So, yeah, I think Oscar Hammerstein like died right after it opened or something like that.
Wow.
I'd have to go way back in my memory hole from when we did the Sound of Music episode from 2015.
Oof.
Yeah.
But it was nominated for Best Costume Design, Best Sing Design, Best Conductor, and Musical Director, which they do not have as a category anymore.
And they should. My God.
Best Direction of a Musical, Best Performance by a Featured Actress in a Musical for Sandra Church as Louise, I believe. Best Performance by a Featured Actor in a Musical for Jack Klugman as Herbie. Best Performance by a Leading Actress in a Musical for Ethel Merman as Rose.
You'll be swell. You'll be great.
And Best Musical. Gypsy is directed by Mervyn LeRoy. This is the film, obviously. Its screenplay is by Leonard Spiegelgas. Leonard S. It is produced by Mervyn LeRoy. It stars Rosalind Russell, Natalie Wood, and Carl Malden. Rosalind plays Rose. Natalie plays Louise. Carl plays Herbie. Cinematography is by Harry Stradling. It is edited by Philip W. Anderson. The music and lyrics are by Stein and Sondheim, and then the music for the film is arranged and conducted by Frank Perkins. It was
is he the conductor in the
No, but that's so funny that you asked that. It's Julie Stein. a conductor at the beginning of the film.
Cool.
Yeah. For the part that Molly probably like just fast forwarded through the overture.
Yeah, I hated it.
It's distributed by Warner Brothers. It was released on November 1st, 1962. So this is only 5 years after the memoir comes out, which I think is just that turnaround is so crazy.
And 3 years after the musical first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hot. They were writing it hot.
And and then the running time is 143 minutes. A bit long.
Do you have a lot of Warner Bros? Have we done a lot of Warner Bros?
We've done some.
Okay.
The budget is $4 million, and it made $11,076,923, down to the exact.
I'm guessing
dollar.
that's an inflation situation that they put in a calculator, maybe. And
No, I think that's real.
wow.
I don't know.
The books. Louise must have done the books.
Louise did the books. Louise is a seamstress, and she's an accountant.
She's just accountant, producer.
That sounds to me like a success. I don't know like what multiple you need to make for it to be considered a success, but seems like a good return, right?
It was the 8th highest grossing film of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like they released a lot of movies back then.
Yeah. I feel like
Who knows?
If you break top 10, that's pretty good.
At the Academy Awards. Okay. This is nominated for 3 awards. Only 3. Best scoring of music, adaptation, or treatment. Best costume design color, and best cinematography color.
None of the big ones.
None of the big ones, which I think is very interesting. However, at the Golden Globes, this was nominated for like everything, and then it won. Rosalind Russell won for Rose at the Golden Globes.
Okay. A Best Actress musical.
Apparently, during the filming, the real life Gypsy Rose Lee visited set to give Natalie Wood tips on her stripping.
Wow.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
I also wanted to say, Rose Lee. Actually, this was the 3rd book she had ever written, her memoir. Her first book is a detective mystery set in a burlesque theater.
Oh my gosh.
And it's called The G-String Murders.
Oh my gosh, I need to read this.
Doesn't that amazing?
It sounds so
I think
good.
we drop the pod here. We go read, we come back,
Absolutely.
and then just have a book club episode.
Yes. Wow.
And then she also wrote a play too, which is interesting. She wrote a book, a play, and then a memoir.
Yeah.
Did she write as Louise? Like she
wrote it was
as Rosalie.
It was credited as her stage name. In the original casting decisions, Rose was considered originally between Ethel Merman, Judy Garland, and Judy Holliday. Rosalind Russell had just been trying to get a play, like a straight play version of this film made, but the rights were tied to the play, music. So they had to basically do the musical version. So that's kind of how she got her way into it.
She was trying to just do a straight play, not even a film, or she was trying to do no music.
Yeah, just a regular drama of the film, but ends up in the musical version. I
feel like, is that rare? That's such a curious thing of what's a musical that you feel like would have worked as a better just straight drama, movie adaptation.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, because
I mean, we touched on it with The King and I. Because there have been like Anna and the King adaptations made.
And I feel like we talked about it with Dear Evan Hansen in terms of how serious they wanted to make it.
Well, anything, Mama.
And anything would have been better.
Anything would have helped.
Girl, that could have been a book in Braille, honestly. Louise was considered for Anne Margaret. So I know RJ is gonna be very sad that we didn't get the Anne Margaret version of Louise.
Let me entertain, because there was a jazzy version at the end.
RJ's obsessed with Anne Margaret. You reference her a lot. Reference her.
Vertiger Arrow and Anne Margaret. Those are my trends right now. Big trends right now.
Hashtag trending.
Trend alert.
Anne Margaret. Jazz. So Rosalind Russell did not do the singing. She recorded the songs, and then they ended up using another of different vocalists to dub over for the film.
All the songs?
Not all the songs. The Mr. Goldstone. That is her actually singing live in the room.
They're have a bite, Mr. Goldstone.
Yes.
Have an egg roll, Mr. Goldstone.
Yep.
Sure.
Apparently her singing wasn't. It was a lot. It's a weighty, hefty amount of singing Rose's character has. Allegedly, after Ethel Merman died, there was a box found in her belongings with a recording of Rosalind Russell singing the role. And it was like Ethel was so mad that she did not get to play this role in the film. And so this was like her consolation prize. And I'm sure she just played to herself now and then to remind herself of how she is still superior in this one way than Rosalind Russell, which is so
it's like a recording
petty.
of Rosalind Russell doing a bad job of singing the song, basically. Okay.
That she would just like listen, like, you know what? at
least I didn't do this.
I'm better than this. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big slay. Honestly.
That's so funny.
That's diva.
It is.
It's also funny because of the fact that it just was found after she died. And so it's not like she didn't need anyone to know about it.
Yeah.
It's just for me.
It's just for me. Yeah. And then you find out later, like, wow, this is her self-care.
Yeah.
Listen, you got to do what you got to do to get through losing out on one of probably the closest thing she would have ever gotten to getting an Oscar, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's giving Angela Lansbury
seeing Lucille Ball in the wings and being like,
oh my God.
That was horrifying. The dread. You're in the middle of a scene, you glance off stage and you see Lucille Ball with a fucking pen and paper out and you're like, well, fuck.
Anytime I'm in a performance now, I'm always going to have eyes out for Lucille Ball.
Yeah.
She might be taking notes.
You never know. She's always right around that corner. So yeah, Julie Stein conducts the overture in the beginning, but they did truncate the overture from 5 minutes down to 2.
Because they knew Molly Matine.
They knew Molly
would be watching.
One day, 2023, Molly would be watching this.
I was going to say, this wasn't too bad of an overture, actually, and that's why.
Now we know why.
Well, it is also not, I mean, like, on one hand, it's so different from most overtures because you actually, like, see the pit. Like, you can actually see them playing, which is, like, really cool.
Which goes into, like, overtures are, to me, effective when you're kind of, like, seeing how talented the orchestra,
hearing the live music in the room.
Yeah.
I will say also the funny thing is that one of my favorite bands, AJR, because they have some musical theater influences, sometimes does overtures for their albums. And it's like often my favorite song on the whole album is the overture.
You're so annoying.
Just a quirky girl. I don't know what to tell
you. I guess it is all context dependent on whether or not I can vibe with an overture.
Yeah. Carousel, no. AJR. Yeah.
And in the one big change that I saw from stage to screen is June in the film elopes with Jerry, but in the musical she elopes with Tulsa, which is the one that Louise has the dance with.
I was wondering why they didn't have her elope with Tulsa when I watched the movie.
Yeah, it was weird, and like nobody seems to have like a good understanding of what the reasoning would have been, other than like this guy got an extra scene.
Yeah, because he makes that comment that's like, yeah, I'm so excited. June will be my partner for this dance or whatever.
Yeah.
It's in the same scene, but maybe that could have been said at the end of the dance and then like make sense that they disappeared the next time we see them, like at the train station.
Right. And isn't it more dramatically resonant if Louise has unrequited love for the man that her sister ends up marrying? Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like this guy, he doesn't like Louise back. And then her sister marries somebody unrelated. Like, why not just put the characters together and make it more?
Her sister June marries someone at the age of 13, allegedly, in Texas.
I don't know why you said allegedly. It's a fictional story.
Allegedly.
We're not going to get into legal trouble for any of this.
They're coming for us.
They're listening.
That is all I wanted.
Ball in the corner right down.
She's over in the corner taking notes with her little pad and paper. Okay, that's all I have on the background. We are now going to go into the topic at hand, Romani. I have so much to say about this, and the worst thing is that I have no idea if the film is good.
Okay.
I think the musical is so strong on its own that I think it's pulling the film to where I think it's good, but I don't know if as a movie, if I'm like, this was effective. I think there are definitely choices that I hated. Like I hate the voiceover in this film. It is so bad. It's such a bad decision. It's so lazy. I hated it. I think like it
felt just like mismatched with the actual book.
Yeah.
Like it felt just like filler to kind of fill in that transition when like she's just explaining things that we're visually seeing.
Yeah.
You know,
I think some of the performances, I wish there was like a little bit more of a distinction between their on-stage persona and their off-stage, like how big they are in a vaudeville setting versus like I felt like some of the interior scenes that are supposed to be really dramatic were like overacted. So I felt like there was like a blurring of like, but maybe that's also intentional. I don't know. I didn't think it was, but maybe it was. But the film I think is like, it does a solid job at like doing the musical, but I think the musical itself is so strong from like a purely like character arc perspective for like multiple characters have actual genuine arcs throughout this whole thing, and it's not just like the one protagonist or whatever. I think the songs are good too, but yeah, I just like we ended the movie last night and I spent like 10 minutes just like furiously typing because I was like, there were so many things, especially in that last like 15 minutes that I was just like, there are so many themes. There are so many themes.
Yeah.
And women. That's my general take.
Yeah, that's your overall take. Do you feel like you need to say whether or not it's a good movie because of the fact that we have a podcast about it? Or is that something you feel like anytime you watch a movie, you feel this need to like be able to say at the end, this was a good movie or not a good movie?
I would say I say it's a good movie for the podcast, but in actuality, what my brain does is like, would I ever watch this movie musical again? And I don't know if I would, but I don't think it's like the musical's fault that I wouldn't. I think it's like, I don't think it's like that strong of a movie.
Wow.
I think it's like not super directed, like really, I don't think it has like a strong point of view directorially. I think like there are aspects of it that are really good. And I do think like they're good performances turned in. But on the whole, I just was like, I think the pacing's weird. But I think that's also like a story thing in general.
I disagree so strongly with what you've just said.
Wow.
I thought it was so good to the extent that I was thinking about how this should be one of the first things you introduce someone to if they don't know about musicals and you want to get them into musicals.
Wow. And you know what? This is, I don't want to spoil it, but this is the debate on letterboxd.com. Is you have either people being like, this is perfect cinema. Rosalind Russell turns in one of her greatest performances of all time in this film.
Which, yeah.
Or you have people being like, I slept through the first 2/3 of this movie because the plot doesn't happen until the last half hour, which is fair. But it's not a movie. That's what's crazy is this musical itself is not about a plot.
Yeah.
No.
It's purely about it is a character-based show.
A study.
I mean, maybe if I had watched it and I didn't know that what it's about is about Louise turning into blank Rosalie, that maybe then I wouldn't have the thing that was pulling me forward. But
were you looking to see like how she ends up?
Exactly.
Like
I was watching
star.
it through that lens because I was like, I know that it's about her mom being too big as a stage mom, and it's about the lesser talented daughter becoming the one who becomes famous. And I was really curious about like, how does the turn happen? What is, especially that like even leading up to like, once they got to the burlesque theater, I was like, when is the moment that she's going to like take on this persona? Right.
Yeah.
So like that to me is what was driving it forward. I will say also that when we talked about the amount of music, I was kind of surprised. It felt like between the overture and the first song felt like a little bit long.
Yes. Like, I was like, when's the first song?
Yeah. Like when they first started singing, I had a moment of like, oh, right.
That's right.
It's like, of course I knew that, but like I had kind of settled into this as just like a straight movie or whatever.
Do you consider the first time they sing in like when Rose sings when they're in the house back in Seattle?
That's what I'm thinking of, I think.
Okay.
Was there another?
They do a vaudeville.
Because they do a vaudeville bit during the audition. But that's what I'm saying is like this. I think this movie is what I agree with you. Okay, I'll let you finish the thought and then I'll say what.
I think that's basically it. But that I can see where there are things that might make it hard to get into it when you first start. But by the time we got to Rose's turn is the act 1 finale, right? That's what
Everyone's Coming Up
Roses.
Everything's Coming Up Roses. Yeah. And then Rose's Turn is the finale. Okay.
The end, yeah.
So by the time we got to that, I was like, this is one of the best movie musicals I've ever seen.
That scene is chilling. Yes. That scene is incredible.
Yeah.
That scene should be taken out and put in a museum on a loop so everyone in the world has to see it. Or it's in this. It should be in the Smithsonian. I'm not even kidding.
Honestly,
it's so good.
That scene needs to be studied by like every actor that wants to be an actor / musical theater actor, because it's truly like discovery, making the decision, like fully.
Also, there are so many like good blocking choices in that scene. There's so many good like camera angles that like focus between the two. It's good.
Earlier you were like, no directorial vision at all.
there are times that I think there is, but I also think there are times where like I include the doing of the voiceover as one of the directorial choices.
Okay.
Because the musical does not have, I mean, it also would fall back on the screenplay as well. But
it felt like a choice that was like, I need the audience to be able to catch on what's happening.
It's so weird because they don't okay, the voiceover really bothered me. Okay, let me say, I have to go back. I agree with Molly. If you are going to use this as a film to introduce someone to the idea of a movie musical, because of its use of diegetic music. And I think most movie musicals that work for the general public more than just people who like musicals as a concept are the ones where
it's incorporated.
Someone's like performing a song and it like there's an explanation as to why it's happening. And so from that regard, I do think you're right. I think it's the only thing that would really be hard with like a current audience is just like it does have the interminable thing that we always talk about, which is the like, you gotta edit this movie just a little, you gotta take out those air just a little bit. You'd take off 10 minutes off this film if you just took the air out of these scenes, but that's just a product of the time. What do you think? What did you think about this movie, RJ? Person I'm looking at next to me on a visual meet.
You know, it's very Anne Margaret. I felt like I really felt her presence.
It was so Fruitiger Arrow.
No, I hear both sides. Okay.
Oh, you're gonna
RJ,
be
not gonna take. He's gonna take a stance. Yeah. He's gonna be right
Joe
in the
Biden over here.
Moderate over here.
Jesus, Amy Klobuchar.
Buttigieg gaze over here.
For once, man.
Have a take.
Be controversial.
Say Natalie Wood sucked in this movie. I want to hear you say something crazy.
No. I think I am leaning more towards that I like this movie, thinking back at it now. I do think if the voiceovers didn't happen and the air was sucked out a little bit more, I think it would be like, a perfect film. I think there was just like I think pacing is like the big thing for me, but I mean, every single performance is so good. Like I didn't feel like there was a performance, even though like you said that there was some overacting, I still felt like it was still I was more in the camp of like, it's still in the style. You don't know what is an act and what's not because their lives revolve around being an act sometimes. Like for Dainty June, like her trying to like figure out how she actually sound, like, you know, like her voice kind of like wavered as she was like not being a performer anymore. Like I felt like there was something there, like Louis, like I just thought I thought the character study of each performance was what was really pulling me for the whole thing. That even if I'm like, even if I didn't know that Louise was going to be a star at the end, I was so still captured by her, Natalie Wood's performance and the character, because she is like, she's trying to make it work. Like I could tell that she's someone that's like understands what's going on and like what her mom is doing in some level, but like can't quite put it into words just because she has no confidence to kind of see what's actually happening, you know?
Yeah. I think it's so interesting that you both mentioned the like air in the movie, because I have struggled paying attention to a lot of the movies we've watched recently. Yes. And I watched this at like, it started at like 9.
I know you were like,
and I did not feel like it dragged at all. Like I really didn't. I don't know. I mean, I felt like when I saw how long it was, I was like, wow, this is going to be a lot. But I guess maybe because it felt like it built and got more and more interesting as it went along. Yeah. Even as I was tired, I was like, but you're earning every moment of this last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
My take is that the Rose is a Greek, like a Titanic level Greek tragic hero of like the hubris. It starts and you know how this is going to end.
Girl,
like
hubris.
That first scene,
hubris, baby,
and it's so good. That's what's so cathartic is watching that final Rose's turn is the realization that
hubris as a drag king,
hubris.
Okay, yeah, Rose's turn at the end works because you see it.
You see the train
so
like
long.
not stopping, and then it finally crashes. Yeah.
It's so good. Let's go through. Let's start simple. Let's start with June.
Okay.
June is the star. June is, I mean, what some would think of as me, and as the star of this pod.
I'm a star.
I have to say, I think because of the fact that she's called Baby June, and then there's a movie called Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. I think that there was a period of my life where I wasn't sure if that was a separate thing from this musical.
Like you were like, is that? And
then isn't there also a Baby Jane who fell down the well? Was that Jessica? Baby Jessica?
That's Jessica. That's
okay.
Baby Jessica.
There was a period where I was like, the musical Gypsy, a child who literally fell down a well, and Thriller from like the 1940s might all be the same thing somehow.
Yeah.
Baby, whatever. It's all the same to me, honey.
Yeah.
honey.
Baby June is a legend. She is the moment. She is everything.
I think what's nice, what's really nice about the story, or what's cool, is that it's so focused on June in that first act that like you already know, like you said, you already know where Rose is going to end up. You can kind of also feel that thing for June too. Like she's such a dynamite, and Rose is putting so much pressure on their livelihood and how talented she is. So I'm like, obviously this is going to come to a point. It's a classic child star too. Like they get to a point, then they stop and are like, I have been working as an adult, as a child, and I need to like. Yeah,
there's the two tracks. Either you like quit while you're ahead, or you like become dissolve into nothing.
Yeah.
The thing I really like is the song Mama.
If Mama was
married, because that's the first scene we get where you understand that June is as frustrated as Louise.
Yeah.
To some extent, you've understood that Louise is frustrated up until now, but she's more meek and won't say anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And from a surface level, you might think like, oh, June loves that she has the attention all the time. But like, I like that this flips a lot of like what you expect this show to do. Like,
yeah, like I feel like you would think
it would be easy for June to be a brat, and she's not a brat in this film.
Yeah.
Or that they hate each other.
Yes.
But essentially,
that's what I love is that they don't hate each other.
No, they don't.
I would have liked that a lot less if that's how they did it.
Yes.
But I think that it's easy to feel bad for Louise because her mother really doesn't value her.
Yes.
And it's harder to understand that having the pressure of being the golden child can be its own kind of torture. And so I really do appreciate the way that they handled her character.
Yeah. It's so well treated. That's kind of crazy. Let's listen to a little bit of If Mama Was Married.
If Mama was married, we'd live in a house as private can be. Just Mama, 3 ducks, 5 canaries, a mouse, 2 monkeys, 1 father, 6 turtles, and me. If Mama was married.
If Mama was married, I'd jump in the air and give all my toe shoes to you. I'd get all these hair ribbons out of my hair, and once and for all, I'd get Mama out too. If Mama was married.
Dainty June in the revival was played by, I don't remember her name, but she also played she was also in the A Little Night Music. She played the maid, the lusty maid, Leanne Larkin. She was very good.
Lady Larkin from Once Upon a Mattress, which was also the same year as Gypsy and The Sound of Music.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, those all feel so different from each other.
Mary Martin, Ethel Merman, and Carol
Julie
Burnett.
Andrews? Oh,
Carol
okay.
Burnett were all on Broadway together.
Matches.
3
Wow.
leading ladies.
I thought you were saying Camelot.
No.
Can I ask a question about
No.
Dainty June that
Wait, I have to go. I'm wheezing. I have to go get my inhaler. Hold on.
Oh, okay. Pause.
What?
I asked if I could ask a question about Baby June, and then you said no.
Yes. Baby Dainty? Baby or Dainty?
Baby or Dainty?
June. I have a question about June, but it's going to skip ahead to the end.
Great.
We're
jumping around.
We're jumping around.
We're doing character based. Okay.
Yeah.
Does it bother you at all that Gypsy, sorry to everyone, blank Rosalie, Louise doesn't ever contact her sister again?
I always took it as that June was like, I don't want to be in the industry anymore. Like, I just am happy being not a single, but a wife with her kids, living in a farm or whatever it is.
It seems to me so the big event of the musical in a lot of ways is when June decides to elope and leave. And I understand that Rose feels very betrayed by this. And I totally believe as a character that Rose would say, that's it. She's done. Like, Rose would never talk to June again.
Yeah.
Totally see why that would not see it like it's reasonable, but see it like makes sense for the character.
Yeah.
But as we were saying, Louise and June have a pretty close relationship. And it seems odd to me. It makes sense to me that when Louise is first turned into the golden child to replace June, that Louise would continue to not contact her, as that's like clearly what her mother would want. Mm-hmm. But it seems like the story is that then when she adopts the new persona and becomes famous and successful, that then Louise is able to like take so much more agency for herself. And it feels like by the end, she should have done the work of going out and finding her sister, because it feels to me like that would be what Louise would really want, would be to maintain a relationship with June.
Like,
and it bothers me that it never comes up.
I like that June just like goes away, because I think the show is so strong because it starts with Louise being nothing.
Yeah.
It is all about June at the beginning. Like, the first half of the show is like the June show, and then she just like disappears. I'm sure, I don't know what happened in real life. I'm sure they probably had a fine relationship or whatever.
Yeah.
And June actually was in many, many films and TV. She started in like 1942 and worked all the way until 1990. She was in 6 episodes of General Hospital.
Oh, wow.
And so she had like a career. She has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. You don't really need to do much to get one of those, but why are you dragging this dead woman, Adam?
Someone has to nominate you, right? Like,
I think you also have to pay like a lot of money.
Yeah,
maybe
it's more like the Forbes 30 by 30 list, where you just pay to get in it. Like, it's not an actual like meritocracy of any kind. And again, why am I dragging this dead woman through the mud?
Jesus.
I like that it does not go back to that relationship, because I don't know. I don't know why.
For me, it felt the story that they are telling about June. It made sense to me that she wanted to like not be contacted anymore. Like, she wanted to be on her own, away from the family.
That's interesting. So you're saying you think it's more of a Louise respecting June's wishes than it is anything else. I mean, I wouldn't want like a whole scene of them reuniting or anything like that. I think it's
even just like a line
that it's good that the plot streamlines and it's just more and more focused just on Louise and Rose, and that's what it's all about. But I feel almost like I just wish that there were a line in like the last scene when she talks to her mother that she's like, and I talked to June on the phone the other day, or something like that just indicates like, hey, one way that I'm gaining independence from you is like I'm talking to June, and you don't get to have an opinion about it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. I like what they do with June's character. I like that she, I like her relationship with Louise, and I like that she leaves. And like, that's really that's like, what's crazy is like, that's the inciting incident. Like, it's literally the end of Act 1, and it is the inciting incident for the plot of the show.
Yeah, it really just builds tension of like basically the tension between Louise and Rose.
It's so funny because the first act really of the musical, and by that I just mean everything like everything's coming up roses, is so standard musical theater silliness. Like the Goldstone song is just like a little farce, and like there's like doors closing and blah blah. Like it's so.
It feels just
kind
like
of
scenes,
normal.
Yeah, like scenes from a crazy life. Like,
yeah. That's why, I mean, that's also the voiceover helps with this, but that's the part that feels the most like memoir-y to me, of like, I remember this one time where we were in a hotel and it was crazy. And
there was a monkey.
Why is there a fucking monkey in this movie? I don't know what I was going to say after that.
That maybe, so June is only present for that tenor of the musical, right? Like,
right.
June exists only in that more lighthearted, more farcical version of events. Yeah.
And then that's when it starts to like get darker, and that's when you start to get to the meat on the bone.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a cool structured musical, because it's really like there's so much thought put into how the story has to get told in order for you to get the emotional climax at the end of the show. So you have to do this really long build up to it. Mm-hmm. And I like that. The other thing I really like, and this is more about Rose, so I probably shouldn't say it yet, but like, I like that she's not a villain. Like, I really like that, as horrible as a mom I would think she is, and it would be a full nightmare to be her child. She's not like an inherently evil person. Like you can just see, there's so many things where it's like, and I think there are so many choices that Rosalind Russell makes in this performance where you can see like her even having a conflict within herself of how to proceed with certain moments, especially toward the end when she like is making decisions that really lead to her and Herbie's like falling out or whatever. But I really like that she is so complex, and while you would probably, as a real person, never make those decisions, you can see why she's making them. And yeah,
she's just doing her best. Like she's doing her best with the situation that she has.
I think this almost like raises a question of like, what is a villain? She is also the heart, maybe not the protagonist, maybe the protagonist. She is a character that we have a lot of empathy for, that we care about, but she also makes some villainous decisions, I think. And I think, most, Road to Hell is paved with good intentions. I think most people who do evil things have good intentions behind it.
I mean, that reminds me of like a Greek tragic hero. Like, truly, you're like, they have done like poor decisions that led them to where the situation where we could just get to see like them have a downfall, basically.
Yeah, I like that. Even like the other thing I really like about the Goldstone scene is that while yes, she says things to Louise that are like unkind and mothers should not say, you never get the sense that she dislikes her children or that she doesn't love them. Like, oh, you may feel differently.
Well, I guess it's not that I disagree as much as like, I think that is like a poor measure of her quality as a parent. It's because it's not about the comments she makes. Yes, sometimes she says things to Louise. It's like, that she's not talented or beautiful or like anything like that. And that's hurtful, and parents should not say that about the children. Yeah. People shouldn't say that to children at all. But I think to me, it's more that she has this like inability to like really be empathetic and truly consider the impact of her actions. And she could say very kind things to her kids all the time, and it wouldn't change that core dynamic of not being able to ever consider the idea that maybe her children are their own people with their own opinions, and that she should just like stop and consider them for a moment, really. And I just think that I don't know, it seems sort of narcissistic, right? Of, that she's so like wrapped up in her own reality and her world of what's important, and not having empathy for others, especially children, to me is like maybe the most villainous thing that you can exhibit. And I really would say, like, especially talking about the most amazingly direction scene of all time, the Everything's Coming Up Roses scene, the way that as she starts to describe what's going to happen, Herbie and Louise clutch each other.
Yes.
It is like two characters in a horror movie who are seeing the villain, like holding a gun to their head. Like they are horrified by what she's saying. And I just...
It's just true chilling. Delusions of grandeur. Like it's
true
so
delusions,
crazy.
and you can see how everyone around her feels powerless. It's them realizing like this is what's going to happen, and that neither of them
can do anything
has,
about it.
Yeah, the capability to stand up to her.
It's so funny because this story seems so small until like Gypsy Rose Lee becomes like a huge performer, and then it like feels bigger. But like these moments are they're just in these like they're in like a Wichita theater. Like it's nothing, right? Like they're on the vaudeville circuit as vaudeville is dying. Like no one cares about them whatsoever, but everything is so heightened to such an extent. Like these huge feelings are like, that's what feels like almost operatic about how big this musical feels, even though it is telling such a small story of like just one little vaudeville act that really doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. But like you put your everything into it, and then that's all you have to cling on to as like your output and the way you see your own success in like the world.
Maybe we are talking about this from a June, and then let's talk about Everything's Coming Up Roses, and then that opens up to Herbie, Louise, and Rose.
Can we talk about quickly? I wanted to say the other thing that I love about Everything's Coming Up Roses too is she starts the song by singing it to Louise, and then the blocking moves her out, so then she's just like singing to herself.
Yeah,
like there's also not an audience. Fine, whatever, she's singing to the camera, but like in the reality of the situation, she is just like talking to herself. She's convincing herself of this, like everything's gonna be fine, and it's gonna be fine, and I'm gonna figure it out, and it's gonna be fine. And that blocking also, I was like, oh, because they purposefully put Louise's back to the camera at first. So she is like, you understand, she is it starts out by being like, it's okay, Louise, we're gonna be okay.
Yes, as if she's saying like Louise is the one that's worried that
I need to make Louise feel better.
Has been ruined now because June has left.
Right. Yeah. It's so good. Oh, there were so many of those where I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to talk? Sorry.
My favorite thing about Everything's Coming Up Roses is that it's that same feeling of dread, like you said, with a horror film, but the full clash of that it is a vaudeville song. Like it is doo-doo-doo-doo. It's supposed to be upbeat. Her words are literally like coming up roses and daffodils. It's gonna be so hopeful and amazing, and a full gray train station.
The scenery couldn't be like more desolate.
It's so everything is so somber and sad and like just like foreshadowing that it's gonna be treacherous for them.
It also has our favorite like movie musical thing where it looks like it's a soundstage. Like,
absolutely.
They are not outside. They are indoors.
Those are painted skies.
Yes.
So good.
The other thing I thought about too with Everything's Coming Up Roses, and this is more like Sondheim being fucking brilliant, which is so stupid. Everything's coming up roses, plural, but also roses possessive. Like,
yes, I think that most people are going to get that.
I had never thought of that before in my life. I was like,
you hadn't even made the connection between her name, or you just hadn't thought about the possessive element.
Possessive in that song.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The name thing seems pretty easy to pick up on, but yes, you're right.
Her name is Rose.
Her name's Rose, and then there's roses later in the movie that Louise gets. That was it's so good.
Yeah. But the disconnect in the scene between the stark landscape, the actual bad element of their situation, and the reactions of the people around her with her attitude and the musical, what the music is suggesting should be the mood is, I mean, it's peak musical. It's peak storytelling in musical theater. I feel
absolutely.
Like it's using every element of the drama or every element available to you to tell the story through a musical medium coming together to like create this amazing discord. Yeah.
And I think this ends up being, to me, like I took it away as like throughout the story, the music is set in like very vaudevillian, very simple like melodies, but Stephen Sondheim's lyrics just kind of fully expressing what people are thinking, what the situation is in their own terms, with just so laden in subtext that it truly elevates the whole like musicality of the show.
You'll be swell, you'll be great, Gonna have the whole world on a plate. Starting here, starting now. Honey, everything's coming up roses. Clear the decks, clear the tracks. You got nothing to do but relax. Blow a kiss, take a bow. Honey, everything's coming up roses. Now's your
Yeah, the everything's coming up roses scene is like a pure triumph. Like it's so
we're not like discovering this. We know that this is a very well-known scene. We're just to clarify, but
it's just fully like we're like, yep, here's the proof. Like you just,
I don't know if anybody's seen this movie, Molly. I'm worried people don't know about this.
Y'all, you got to check it out. I also love just in this, like talking about how perfect the scene is. I love how it's written in such a classic, like dramatic way of like, there are such clear moments of choice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's to some extent, I think it's June and the agent wanting her to stay and become a Broadway actress and being told no. And so, I mean, that it's sort of, that sort of incites it, right? And then June decides to go get married instead of pursuing it. Right. But like, and then it's later when Louise is offered or not offered, when Rose overhears that there is an opening for a lead stripping role. The decision being, I mean, it's so classic. Everything leads to this moment and what's the choice that the character is going to make. And everything that we've seen in the character tells us why they make the choice that they do. Right.
Yes.
Like, that is just like good playwriting.
I know. I mean, yeah, you can think about that first act really is, it has that mini arc because that realization when Dainty June is going to get a contract and like fully, she doesn't want it. Like Rose doesn't want it, like has fully made June and Louise truly question like, well, what are you doing this for? Because isn't this the goal for someone to be a star, for June to be a star? And this is it. Because even Louise and even Herbie are both like, this was the goal. But because like she isn't going to be a part of it, that truly like ultimately led to June maybe coming up with that realization that like, oh, it was never about.
Oh, wait, let's dive into this. You know? What do we think is Rose's true motivation for wanting to turn down the contract for
that first contract?
June?
It feels like she's not going to have a like creative control basically of like what the act is.
See, I think the more interesting thing is like,
well, because it's not even just about vaudeville too. It was like she's going to be an actress on Broadway. She's going to be in pictures. Like it's like it was like a talent contract for June. You know,
I think it is like her biggest fear, and this is why she lashes out at the end, is feeling as though she takes feeling unneeded as being shut out,
unloved
because of what has happened to her in her past.
Yeah.
And I think it's like kind of an interesting choice some Roses make where they like make it about like she'd always wanted to do this herself. I think that's honestly less interesting because like fine. And that's to some extent, I think, valid and textual that she has the like whole Rose's Turn segment where she kind of like reveals that to a little bit. But I think moreover, it is a greater commentary on what I think many mothers, especially in a time when the roles were so static as to what mothers and fathers provided for their children, what happens when your children do not need you anymore? And like, there was not a understanding of what a woman out of motherhood, meaning like her children had grown up, what is expected of her, how does she function in society, especially as like Rose is like a single woman. Like she's not going to go take care of her husband. She doesn't have a husband to take care of, which I think
and
is
pretty
like
actively is choosing that.
Yes, like the option to do that and be and have that purpose she actually does not want.
And I think the reason I said earlier, I was looking up something before we started. So the feminine mystique, I looked up what year it comes out, and that comes out in 1963, which is the year after this film. So they're not really in talks with each other, but there is like that, I think that realization during the 60s, early 60s, after the 50s, like we came back from the war and now everybody's gone back to their perfect little lives of like, what do these perfect little lives mean once they stop being perfect anymore? Which is, I think, like the 60s are such a great time for, I mean, a shit ton of stuff, but like specifically like the grappling that a lot of like playwrights and media forms had with like different variations of what the American dream was.
Yeah.
And I think this fits beautifully into that conversation, even though most people, I think, really just think of this so quickly, pass this off as being like, oh, it's just like that Stage Mom musical. And it's like, it is so much bigger than that. Like, it really is like about huge themes that are like, I don't know, they feel gargantuan. I mean, we've had like the term stage mother, I looked it up, the term stage mother was like originated in the 30s. So it's like been around, like the idea of this role has been around for like a lot longer than this film even exists, and it exists to this day. I mean, the fact that there was like Dance Moms was its own like show for however many years, and it was called Dance Moms. Like it wasn't even like about the dancers. It was about the mothers being crazy.
Yeah. I'm going to reveal my lack of knowledge about feminism for a second, which is very funny that before this podcast, Adam made a joke about me bringing in knowledge about feminism. And I was like, I don't need research for it, but I'm going to reveal my lack of knowledge. So the feminine mystique is about what?
Great question.
I obviously have heard of it before, but I wanted to comment on it. And then I had a moment of like, wait, is that what feminine mystique is actually about? Let's fact check ourselves for a second.
Yeah.
Betty for Dan.
I know it's Betty for Dan. Sorry, I should really.
Iconic for Dan.
Let me just find a quick pull quote.
Fulfillment as a woman had only one definition for American women after 1949, the housewife mother.
And this was the book that challenged that widely.
Adam, like I think it was during Rose's turn. That's when he had the realization in the movie of like, it's like putting a spotlight on a woman at this time and being like, what do you actually want? Like, what are your hopes and dreams? You know,
very
and
true.
It's that's kind of like a Hollywood version of it. But
I think also this is where I'm wondering about the word mystique. Is there not an element about like sex in the book? Yeah,
is there like sexual liberation
in deriving power from being viewed sexually?
So chapter 13, Friedan discusses the psychologist Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs and notes that women have been trapped at the basic psychological level, expected to find their identity through their sexual role alone. Friedan says that women need meaningful work just as men do to achieve self-actualization, the highest level on the hierarchy of needs. Friedan notes that many housewives have sought fulfillment in sex, unable to find it in housework and children. She notes that sex cannot fulfill all of a person's needs, and that attempts to do so often drive married women to have affairs or drive their husbands away as they become obsessed with sex.
It's like the thing of like not having it. You keep thinking that is the one thing that you need to.
Yeah. Well, I'm learning I should actually read The Feminine Mystique, or at least familiarize myself more with it. It's one of those books that's kind of like, well, I know about it because it's like in culture, but like I don't really know what is actually in it.
Our follow-up reading is the G string.
We let it.
I'm reading that first for sure. No, I'm just anticipating that my mom's going to text me when this comes out to be like, I can't believe don't have any idea what's in The Feminine Mystique.
We should do a 3-part book series. We read G-String Murders, we read Feminine Mystique, and Simone de Beauvoir's The Second Sex. We read all 3 of those, and you really get an understanding of women.
We really get in it. I just wanted, the reason I took us on this whole tangent of trying to quickly Wikipedia what's in Feminine Mystique is that I think it's interesting too that this musical in some ways revolves around sexual power, right? Like deriving your power from that, but also that it's about ultimately withholding that power. I mean, that is like, the power as a stripper is like,
the power of that burlesque. Yeah.
That's the whole power of the burlesque. And the fact that like the big thing is that she never actually takes off her clothes.
Right.
And so I think it's interesting to think about what is Rose's relationship with that. And we learned so much about her attitude about it when they first arrive at the burlesque theater. And there's all of this language about she's a lady and we're not here to do that and all of this stuff. Right. And so Rose is so interesting in that she has rejected the idea of like having a husband. She has this guy that's around the whole musical. She will not marry this man. She's had 3 husbands before. she's still not interested in that, but also rejects with that. Maybe she feels like they have to go together, rejects any sort of like sexualization of her person and of her daughters. And that like, that is, and there's such clear status associated with that to her of the language of like a lady.
Yeah.
Is so status based.
Even with specifically her role and status, like I thought it was so clever, like in the beginning when she had like every fraternity badge, every like male group, like she was an elk, she was a whatever, like she had all of these badges to get ahead and get all of the
one of the great con artists of the American stage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this before. It's a theme we love.
Musical theater.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and it's interesting that they're all things that only men can have. So she has to say, my dad.
Yeah, my dad.
All of these things, right? Yeah, it's very interesting. And then I'm realizing that I asked a discussion question a long time ago about why does she reject June's contract, and I'm trying to figure out if I can bring it back.
Bring it back to that.
But I think it's interesting the protection. We're gonna bring her on this way. The protection of her daughters, that she is so controlling, but she's also very protective. And I think again with the like flawed thinking of I think kind of evil character is that she sees her protection as necessary in this industry. And I'm sure it wasn't when they showed up at the burlesque theater that she first had the thought of like, oh, someone might try to exploit my daughters in the entertainment industry. And
she's doing the explaining.
Yeah, she's doing. Yeah, I'm going to be the one doing the explaining. Thank you. She does have this line in the scene where she rejects June's contract of like leaving her daughter. That basically they're saying like she's going to come be a star and you're going to not be involved, and she's like she's a child basically, and I'm not going to like leave her in your care. Which one made me think of? Did you guys watch the HBO documentary about Michael Jackson?
No, we haven't.
It's like focuses on two survivors of his. I'm trying to think of a way to skirt around it, but it's pedophilia. And it's really interesting, the interviews with the moms, because they both like left their children alone in situations with this pop star, and the way that they try to explain their behavior, it's really fascinating. There's like, I'm not saying there's no self-criticism, but there's like, it's interesting, especially there's one mom where it's like, she will kind of admit what she did wrong, and then she'll like pick the smallest thing somebody else did and get so mad about it. And it's like, it feels like you're projecting there of like, well, I did all this stuff, but like someone else did something also bad. Anyway, so the idea of leaving your child, that was what that's like where my brain went. She said leaving my child. And I think it's interesting in terms of how betrayed she feels by June, that then June decided to do this step that, and like the beginning of the scene when Rose won't even say anything, focuses on Herbie like trying to go out, get the police because a 13-year-old has gone and gotten married. And so you're sort of like the writers of the story are reminding you she's so young and she's gone off and left her mother.
Okay, so this is really interesting because we had a different, not a different take, but we were interpreting it as
are they actually the age that Herbie thinks they are?
Because Rose the entire time is like their baby.
She's been 10. She's had 3 10-year-old birthdays.
Yes. Yeah. And this entire scene only refers to June as baby. Like, where's the baby?
She says, where's the baby?
And that's when Adam and I were like, oh my God.
Dark, insidious.
Yeah.
All in the Everything Summer Roses scene that was like, it's already like laying the foundation that like, she has built this, and so it's unreliable now. You don't really know what's the truth anymore. And it feels more like not a betrayal, but
this scene also, I can't believe we're going back to this.
Everything is coming back
this
to Roses.
Also feels this scene also feels extremely Greek to me, where everything takes place off stage and then they come on and they're like, they all left, we're left alone. Something happened off stage that we will never see, and now we are dealt with the repercussions.
So yeah, we came off of it being like, has she been lying about the age the entire time? Because it's part of the act. So like, even in the real life,
because
even the boys, she was like, they're just boys and they're clearly men.
I wish this movie did have more clarity on like what the timeline actually is.
No, but I think,
because with Natalie Wood playing like the dainty version of Louise into the like adult version, I was like, how old are you?
Yeah.
I do think though, I think that there's power in the ambiguity of their ages. And we know how much she's, especially with Louise, because she has the like little lamb song and everything, that like it's so clear that she is. I mean, like I was wondering in that scene if she turned 18 and her mom was like, I'm not, there's no way that we're gonna treat you like you could ever be an adult, right? And so I think actually what I'm saying though about feeling this anxiety about leaving your child, I'm guessing in Rose's mind she's 13. Like, even if she's not, I think kind of what I'm saying remains as true as ever because of the fact that I'm talking about Rose's motivations exclusively and not whether or not June actually can get married. I mean, apparently the state of, was it Texas? Fine with 13-year-olds getting married. That's probably still true. So I thought that was
no abortions though. No abortions. No.
We're all wagging our fingers, just so everybody knows, because we're oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I gotta put something in my bag. So I thought that was part of her motivation for saying no to the contract, is that I think she has a genuine, I think she loves her children, and I think so she has a genuine need to protect them, and she feels like she can't give the control for that reason. I also do think she is very stuck in vaudeville. She references it. This is not like a hard textual reading that I've done. This is pretty clearly
pretty surface level. You watched the movie once, level. Got it.
Yeah. And so I think it's also interesting that it almost feels like she feels betrayed of the idea that her daughter would succeed in any other realm, right? And that to me is very about where I feel like it's her own dreams of like, no,
she wanted to be a vaudeville
star.
Yeah.
So she has to be a vaudeville star.
Can we talk about the other thing that we are all dancing around but not talking about?
Okay.
Which is the fleetingness of time. So it comes back as age, but it comes back through like vaudeville dying, like fully in art form has like peaked and then been defeated in the time that they have like this movie plays out. I would say that vaudeville ends up coming back in the 60s and 70s as variety shows on TV. That's my hot take. But and then just like the idea of it goes back into like the whole aging like mom thing of like, what do you do when you have nothing? And by that, I mean, what society has told you you're supposed to have, and then you don't have it anymore.
And I assume that that Rose feels like maybe her life got cut short by having kids. I don't know if that's ever in the text, but that's just like such a common part of characters like this. And so it's, I think that often with at least the stage mom character, I'm not trying to comment on any real people, but like, it's often, my dreams didn't get accomplished. And I feel like it's often because I decided to be a mom instead, that your kid is like a start over, reset your life, fix everything that was wrong with your life by having your kid accomplish your dreams. And so I think the fact that Rose feels so struck in vaudeville is very reflective of the fact that her dreams for her kids are exclusively coming from her own perception and mind and not in any way informed by her children.
Yeah. I do think too that entire situation of like the chaste kind of like clean view that Rose quote unquote has of like everything, where like everything's squeaky clean, married or like juxtaposed by Louise like entering the world of burlesque. I think that's also super interesting because it is. I didn't have a take at the end. I realized I just was like, that's also a thing.
Well, I don't know if we want to jump into that already. I
think it might be time.
Fascinatingly, I have nothing to say about Herbie in this film.
Yeah, I think we've already said what his purpose is that he is kind of representing what she should be fine with or what she should be looking for.
Right.
Yeah, he's around there trying to be a good man, trying to be a good father figure. She won't marry him, and he feels powerless to like truly stand up to her, and that is unfortunate because she like brings people into her, again, I feel like very narcissistic, like kind of power dynamic that like he isn't able to really truly challenge her on anything, and that is probably why she's cool with having him around, is because he doesn't really challenge her. And so I find Herbie a little bit frustrating in that he is trying hard to, he's in so many ways like trying to do what's best for the girls, but like ultimately isn't useful to them at all. And so I feel like there's like an instinct, because he's like such a nice guy, to like give him a pat on the back for what he tries to do, but like he could try a little harder.
I mean, he is like the prototype for Mr. Cellophane.
Yeah.
There's he's not like really. I mean, there is a relationship you could say that like gets formed with Louise and Herbie, I think, but just more of like that we're in this together, trying to like get Rose out of this world, because the moments that they have together of like, yeah, like I can go to school, like, yeah, but like Herbie books them the gigs.
I just thought about the fact that Once Upon a Mattress is also playing the same season, which is about a domineering mother who takes care of her like child and a very quiet father figure. At least.
So now we know why Betty Friedan wrote the book.
She went to 2 shows on Broadway.
She was like,
Jesus,
Eureka,
this is a mess.
Yeah, women. Yeah, that was kind of just how I felt about Herbie and Louise, and also like Rose. Yeah, like used him basically for all of his contacts, essentially, with the empty promises that like, yes, this will be, we just gotta get to the next gig or whatever, and then that'll be the last one. But obviously, it never pans out to a marriage. Okay, Louise. Sing out Louise.
So iconic also that like I knew on sub level that's where this movie that's where that line was from, Sing Out Louise, but like such a part of gay culture that I like kind of had forgotten that it was even it had an origin point at all.
The other line that I forgot that's from this is I'm a pretty girl mama.
Yeah.
She said it and I was like, "Oh my god, that is the Hello Gorgeous of this film that is like quoted so much."
Yeah.
Well, same dude. Right? Julie Stein?
Oh, Julie Stein. No. Yeah, Julie Stein.
Yes. Yeah. Do we want to, I mean, I just want to talk about the scene when they're at the burlesque theater. Do we want to talk about Louise before that? Like she just is. She struggles.
I mean, should we talk about these 3 amazing burlesque performers? That
us, the 3 of
us. I told Adam when we finally go on our Showgays, when we have our live show, this would be the number that we prepare.
Molly, as our Italian correspondent, is the gladiator.
Yes.
The Roman.
Oh, okay.
Will be the Roman.
I'm
Christmas.
RJ's Christmas tree, and I'm obviously the pretty one.
The ballerina.
The ballerina.
Oh, well.
Listeners, write in, and especially those who've never met us and have only heard our voices.
Seen us,
people who
and let us know who you think the pretty one is.
Truly, just know us from audio.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get back to that connect, but I can't remember now. I lost it.
I have so many notes, so maybe something will tick your little memory.
But it was something about Rose, obviously, and Louise.
Rose? Louise. So before, let's a brief
history of Louise.
Yeah. The song I do want to play a little bit of is Little Lamb, which I think is a very sweet song. And really gives you, there's almost like this, well, here's the song.
Little fish, do you think I'll get my wish? Little lamb, I wonder how old I am. I wonder how old I am. Little lamb.
There's a little bit with her character where she feels like up until I would say until she like does burlesque, she feels like emotionally stunned. No, that's not true. When she finally like stands up for the first time to her mom in the desert, that scene. Before then, it feels like she's a little emotionally
stunted because I'm like, she's being treated like a child this entire time.
Yes.
She absolutely. I mean, I think you're absolutely supposed to understand that scene. She is older, that she is like old enough to start making a life of her own and sees herself as just a small child in a way that's kind of creepy almost. Yeah. It's actually, and it's so creepy to me to this day. You guys know Gypsy Rose Blanchard? The girl with the Munchausen by proxy.
We could do a whole podcast just on this, honestly.
I mean, I'm sure there are like multi-part podcasts like this.
Who cares?
HBO shows too. They have a documentary too. So
the fact that woman named her daughter after
her,
this person who was infantilized, it's so much. It's like she like had a child with a pre-plan of having Munchausen by proxy. Like what?
Yeah. She watched this movie and was like,
this is how to be a mother.
This is
how can I go one step further? Is really what she said.
Yeah.
So this eternal child. And I think that really it's that she can't even begin a character arc until June is out of the picture because Louise sees herself as such a passive background player.
Mm-hmm.
Like the thought of even like taking up enough space to like have a conversation with her mother, I feel like it just doesn't even cross her mind. She just isn't in a position to ever like make a decision or have a thought of her own because she's just so much going along with what's happening.
Yeah, because really that scene in the desert, after she says that, and then that's when they book the Herbie gets them that burlesque gig.
Mm-hmm.
When we next see her, she is fully like the touring production manager of this troupe.
Yeah, she missed a life as a stage manager. She felt very stage manager energy.
Yes, she fully became like, okay, I
guess she made it in another thing. I don't know. I think she really missed her calling.
The thing that I was going to come back to was you were making the comment that it was all about just like trying to get in vaudeville again, because that was the kind of the lost dream. That it's interesting that when it was burlesque, it's not like she kind of even though she had been passing judgment the entire time, like it ultimately was okay for Louise to do that to make her a star, because the opportunity was to make her a star despite that, it's burlesque or whatever.
Would she have let June be a burlesque star? Or is it a thing where she...
That's the thing. I think it's more about... I think the opportunity that she gets at the end became more of an opportunity to kind of like make the star. Like she had that like very like troubled genius moment where she was like, I can do Let Me Entertain You, but slow it down 2 times. Like she just had like that kind of like delusion, the same delusion, but just like with more... tactile, because it was an act that was about to happen in a few minutes that felt like, I think this is what she's chasing. Like, I think this thrill that she has to
like the moment of figuring it out and putting together the star. And it makes me think of RuPaul. Do you heard RuPaul talk about how like she realized that she was addicted to like the thrill of getting ready really quickly? And so like she used to always run late to things. And now once she realized like, I'm just addicted to like the adrenaline rush of getting ready on the fly, that now she's fully 180'd and she likes to get there like 4 hours ahead of time and like have her tea.
That's the thing. Like that's why I feel like she's always hustling for the next gig, because she, like finding like, I can make this work. I can make this connection work.
But it is they're also in a situation based on their financial situation. Like it is this movie. It's not like she's just like the stage mom. It's not like Dance Moms where they're like fully just middle-class women who have nothing better to do. Like there is an aspect that I do like, that they are like poor. They are not wealthy people in any kind of way. And so to some extent, the reason why she ends up letting them stay in Wichita even before she does burlesque, the reason they have to stay is because they have to make money. And there is something about like the way that I don't think this movie necessarily like is in conversation with like people turn to different kinds of work for different reasons, specifically like sex works and things that are like sex work.
It's
obviously
never about that,
right? But like I do think like it's not a part of the story textually that like it is. They need to do something in order to survive. They will not survive if they keep doing this.
I think this is a really interesting answer to your question, Adam, about would she have let June do this? Mm-hmm. Because there's really 2 decisions that happen, right? The first one is when Rose figures out that they're at a burlesque theater. Initially, she says, we're leaving immediately.
Yes.
So she decides to have them stay. The second decision is overhearing the conversation about needing a star to strip.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted, when you first asked that question of would she have let June this, I wanted to say, maybe she would have kept them there as the straight act, but not let her become the stripper. But then I realized that the reason that Rose makes the first decision is that Louise reminds her about the money.
Louise becomes that like emotionally mature person in this dynamic that's like, no, we have to stay for the money.
And I don't know that June would have ever become the person that had that conversation.
I don't think so.
If she stayed with her mother, maybe June married, living her own life. I'm sure has developed more backbone opinions, practicalities, all that stuff. But like, I think if June had stayed, June would have remained this golden child, remained a person who allows her mother to have this protective sort of like sheen over her. And so I think June would never have developed what Louise did in terms of the taking control of the girls, having a mentality related to money, right? And I think that only because of the fact that Louise wasn't always the golden child, that's the only reason that she's able to develop that practicality.
Because I think that June, if June stayed, if nothing happened, June stayed, and they just became successful, I think it would just fast forward to the end scene where June would be super successful. Louise would have never like stood up because there wouldn't be a reason for her to stand up for herself. And then it would be Rose being like, well, what do you need? What do you need? And June would be like, I don't need you. Like, I can make my own decisions.
Louise wasn't able to fully stand up to her mother in that until she has been successful enough and fully taken herself out of she is owned by her mother. And by that, I mean like in every aspect. Like, I think it's like the thing where like there are people who give advice for people who are like worried about coming out to maybe like conservative parents, where it's like, make sure your entire financial situation is like you are set to be alone just in case. And that's when you can do it, because like
she wanted to make sure that she got to that place first before she can like feel.
Yeah. But I think that I like that June, I can't believe we're going back to June.
Maybe it is about June.
We thought it wasn't about June, but now we're discovering it is about June.
It's all June. The whole show is June. Just because it's June. That I can envision, right? This is just me drawing on my own understanding of like people who have had weird relationships with narcissistic parents and stuff like that. But I can envision a situation where June like is even more resentful of Rose than Louise is, because she feels like she could be like, I lost an entire childhood because my mom like forced me to be the star of the show. And like, obviously Louise had a similar circumstance, but I don't think I think Louise felt
because
like
she was
humbler. She was like doing something for her sister too.
Yeah. And like Louise is almost offered this opportunity to like have more of a childhood on the side, because she's not the focus of right. That she has this like really close relationship with the other
boys.
Farmer, with the boys.
Yeah.
The fact that everybody gets Louise a present. Oh my God. Like,
yes.
I could not. You can tell that Louise is such a beloved person and like has close relationships, because like I don't feel like I as a child ever had a time where like a bunch of my friends all came up to me. I mean, they did, because it was like birthday parties or whatever. But like
from the local 5 and dime.
But it's
made me a fish.
Like, of course, I had birthday parties, but it was like, you know, your mom takes you to get the gift before you go there, whatever. And like the idea of like all of them individually remember to get her something, like
that's why I love that it's Louise's birthday. It's not June's birthday. I love the fact that they make it. I'm sure that's also in the fucking memoir.
The
writing is really good.
I know it's so good. Wow,
no wonder Rosalind. Yeah, no wonder Rosalind Russell was like, "Who needs to sing? Just put me in this movie.
Just do this." I mean, it's really good. Adam, to your point earlier about like the source material is really good. All the stuff about the writing is the source material, right?
Yeah.
So like,
yeah.
It's able to tell you if the movie's great, but I think it's great.
Yeah. We've never read the memoir. I will tell you right now, I never will read this memoir, but if they're all drawing on these, like if these are real moments that happen in the course of this memoir, I mean, the fact that you can cultivate this product from a memoir, I feel like says a lot about what the memoir must be, because like, it's really
well,
but
it has to be. I mean, they have to have done a great job of making it dramatic because life doesn't happen in these like amazing moments of like everything leads up to it and here's the decision and everything, right? And so I'm sure that they were inspired by real things that happened. But like the fact that June remained an actress, like is clearly it wasn't so sort of like clean break, and the way that they set it up to have us ask questions like, now what if June had stayed would such and such a thing happen to her? Like that is really good playwriting when you're able to dissect it in that way.
Yeah. If I feel like I know the characters well enough to be like, I think they would be like
here's
this.
The answer. Yeah.
Also, do you see June's leaving as an act of cowardice or an act of like defiance?
An act of cowardice. What would be cowardly about her leaving?
I don't know. I think it's an act of defiance. I was just choosing the opposite.
The opposite. I was just trying to name the opposite. I think it was really telling that she didn't take the contract. I think that really showed to June that realization that Louise has at the end of like, what was it all for? I think June saw that for her, and was like, well, it was never really about me. So let me just
exit stage left.
Yeah. And maybe the fact again,
pursuit by a bear.
Maybe it takes some time. It takes some time being the golden child to realize that it's not about you, because June is able to come to the realization quicker, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think I also what I love about June leaving is, even though a long time ago, we've been recording for a long time. Earlier in the episode, I said the thing about how Tulsa is one of the dancers, and he and Louise have this whole scene where he talks about wanting to do a dance with a beautiful girl. And then it's very like, and one day I'll meet a beautiful girl. Like Louise is just clearly being overlooked, and she clearly likes him. Even though I said earlier, I think it's a stronger choice to have June go off with him. What I do like about the fact that it's like, even a guy that's like, I couldn't tell you who Jeff is. Isn't it Jeff?
Jerry.
Great. Well, yeah, you can tell what a big impression he made on me. I couldn't tell you who that is in any of the scenes leading up to it or anything. No. I also love this, that it gives me a sense of like, oh, June has a whole life that's just like not even in the story. Like you weren't paying close enough attention, but like June has had this whole thing going on. Now, I think you could still have it be Tulsa and have it just be that you never see June and Tulsa have a moment and so it doesn't occur to you. But like, I think that I think it's an act of defiance. I think it's potentially something she'll regret. I mean, I feel like we've been talking about it like, and now she's gone off and she's going to have a happy life as a wife and mother and whatever. But like, she's probably pretty young to get married, even if she's not 13. You know, so it's a pretty rash decision, it seems like. So maybe she's not gonna be happy, but I think that her intention is definitely defiance. Or
maybe more so just like the first time she's ever made a decision for herself, you know?
Yeah.
I think she makes the same decision that Louise makes at the end of the show, just in her own terms off screen.
I'm sorry, I just clicked on the actual June Havoc's Wikipedia page. For many years, 1916 was cited as the year of her birth. Havoc acknowledged in her later years that 1912 was likely the correct year. She was reportedly uncertain of the year.
Because
crazy.
Rose forged various birth certificates for the two daughters.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Wow. Unreliable.
That's wild.
Okay, Rose. Anything else from Louise? I mean,
we
gotta talk. Let Me Entertain You. I mean, come on.
Well, no, I think before we talk about that, we have to talk. So we talked about the decision to let them stay after Louise says, we need the money. We got to stay. We got to talk about Rose's decision to have Louise take the stripper spot. And
to me, this was the like musical genius moment, because she was like,
but okay,
the act was playing.
Go back. We have to talk about, you gotta have a little what is it? What the fuck?
Our opening
gimmick.
number. Yeah.
You got to have a gimmick because it is in conversation with Tulsa's song, where like she is swept up in this performance of what he is doing. I think in a similar vein, she is like dazzled by what the
ladies are doing.
These women are so much more than just what they seem to Rose at this point, because of like they're honestly, it's just the simple fact that they're like giving her attention. And like she's been deprived,
she's pretty, or like saying like
they're calling her a lady, and even though they're doing it tongue in cheek because it's a joke about like how Rose is being insane. Like also like they're treating her like a real person, whereas like no one in her life has treated her like a fucking adult until this point.
And it's in such contrast in terms of the content that Tulsa's song is all about like, I have this whole life made and I just need a woman to slot into it, and that it implies that the thing you have to do is earn the love of the man that would put you into that. And versus you got to have a gimmick is all you need is just like one good idea. And then you could be out there making your own life, right? You could be the one that is the star, and you don't have to wait for somebody to pick you to be the girl to be in his number.
Yeah. So I think it's really important that gimmick is, I mean, it is like a funny song in general. and it's performed
fully screamed.
It's screamed to all heaven.
So good.
But I think it's really cool. I think Natalie Wood gives such a good performance in this film.
Oh yeah, she's great.
So incredible. And this is a year after fucking West Side Story, which is just insane. This is back to back.
It is crazy because you made that comment and you were like, it's interesting that she took this role or that she wanted to do this role. And it was like, at first I thought it was more about just, I can play different sides. Like I have I'm an actress. I can do the like sadder, dowdier, like, even though they try to make her look homely, but like every single
Natalie
time
Wood.
it's Natalie Wood. You're gorgeous.
Yeah.
But the real like rise to her power at the end is so...
That monologue is so
She feels
good.
still like the same person, even though she is in a completely different place in her life.
And even though we haven't even gotten that many lines from her in the film, she doesn't have that much to say.
It's so grounded that like, yes, this is exactly what Louise would be in this situation.
Did anyone ever ask Sondheim what he thought of Natalie Wood? Because I realized in the course of watching this movie that she was in two huge movie adaptations of his early...
Oh, yeah.
His work, early work.
I don't know. That's a great question.
Yeah.
RJ, do you have your book?
We do, but it's Look, I Made a Hat, not finishing that.
Oh.
So it's his second half.
Interesting.
Not the early work, but I mean, there was always obviously like Sondheim's own maternal relationship.
No, he never talks about mothers in his works. I don't know what you're talking about.
No,
this is new concept for him. Totally
new territory. Okay, yeah, Natalie Wood's gorgeous, amazing.
She finds her gimmick.
She finds her gimmick,
which is just
not really. She's
not stripping.
Yeah, it's the tease.
It's the tease.
It's putting the tease back in strip tea.
It's ultimately what her mother has taught her. Like it's about the act.
We can't jump ahead to the act. We have to talk about
we have
the
to talk
scene
about
where
the decision.
Rose decides to stay. Yes.
So the setup for everyone who hasn't watched the movie, which gosh, at this point, I hope we've convinced you to do so. Rose is going to marry Herbie finally. She's like,
Herbie has the roses. Herbie's like, girl, we got a carriage in the back. We're so excited.
They're not roses. It's the nicest thing in Wichita, which is like, it's like a couple daisies.
Adam can say that because he's from Indiana. So
corn stalks.
So she's going to leave. Louise is going to just like do the regular show as planned or whatever. And then Rose overhears two stagehands talking about the fact that they have an open slot for, what do they call it? Like a star stripper?
It's like the star slot, like not slot, but like the star something.
The actual term is vedette. That is the official term of the star in a burlesque performance. Yes.
I know that they say the word star because I think that is what.
Yeah. It's the star spot, I think.
The star spot.
Yeah.
But it's like a stripping spot versus because Louise has already earlier, there were a few lines available in a non-stripping role. And Rose immediately is like, she'll do it. Louise will do it. Louise is not so sure, but Rose puts her in there. And then she hears the word star and Rose immediately says
tunnel vision.
Yeah. She's like, she's going to do it. Louise is going to do it. We're going to figure it out. And it's so good. It's so good because Herbie is so disappointed. He's so mad.
Good.
He ends up leaving at the end of the scene, never to be seen again.
No, that's not true. He watches the striptease.
Oh.
And then they cut to him in two shots during that first awkward striptease, and he's watching and he's like so horrified that it's happening.
Yeah. But
so good.
I think he's both horrified. He's horrified for Louise.
Yes.
But he's also so
pissed
upset that Rose got distracted on their big day that he's finally going to marry her. And she immediately forgets about it. Yeah. And here is what I think is interesting about the Herbie Rose element of the scene. Do you think that on some level she does this to get out of marrying Herbie?
Oh.
I guess maybe subconsciously, but
I just feel
she knows it's going to hurt him in this way.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. And she knows it does. That's why she can't face him that whole scene.
Yeah.
Because she says, I mean, it's the same thing. She's like, it'll just be 2 nights. It's just 2 nights. we just need to get for her to perform the star spot for 2 nights, just so. And then she says, like, this is for Louise. Louise can finally have a star spot. This is all they wanted is for me to make them
I don't know,
star.
because I think I don't agree, because I think this is the straw that breaks his back. Mm-hmm. I think that this is so normal for them, for her to change their plans, for her to decide on a whim to do something, that she is so used to him just being jovial and understanding
and
dealing with it and figuring it out after the fact, that when he finally says, that's it, we're done. That is the moment where she turns away and can't look at him anymore, because she realizes that she has crossed the line, but she doesn't. While I also think she does love Herbie, I think she loves this drive inside of her and this need for one of her children to be famous more.
Mm. That's why, I mean, it was telling when they had that one of those the first time she went out with him. When she was also, like, I'm a great mother.
This movie did so much for the Chinese food community. Oh my God. Honestly.
Chow mein's an egg roll.
Yeah, I don't know what the...
What was the
Yeah, there's a lot of references to Chinese food and Rose loving Chinese food. And I feel like maybe there's supposed to be like
it's just like a
she's
reference.
No, I think it's like a she's insubstantial kind of a thing is what it's trying to say.
Oh.
Like cheap and... I'm just thinking about the association with Chinese food that Americans have, which are not accurate to the actual country of China and the many cuisines.
I thought about it more as like every Chinese food in America has the exact same food, so you're going to get the exact same meal no matter where you go. And because they keep going around the country, it's somewhere that still feels familiar, because it's always going to look the same. It's always going to look like a Chinese restaurant. It's always going to have the red and the gold, and like it's always going to have the same menu. So it's a way to feel at home, even though they have no home, because that's the reference to being gypsies.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's how I took it. But that's also very interesting what you say about, because I don't typically associate. I mean, I know that is you eat it and then you're hungry again a half hour later, but
that's like the stereotype. I've never found that to be true.
I wish
it
was true. No, I am. You roll me down home after a meal.
But there is a phenomenon. I was watching something interesting about this, about how like there are fancy versions of almost all cuisine. Like you can get Italian, you can get like, cheap slice pizza, but you can go to like a fancy Italian restaurant, but there aren't any fancy Chinese restaurants in the US because it's so associated in our culture with like, this
P.F.
is
Chang's.
Get the fuck out of here.
Sorry.
There's like a ceiling to how much American consumers will pay for Chinese food because of the way that we view it as this like cheap option.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. We got distracted by the Chinese food. So we have 2 major relationships happening in the scene where Rose decides Louise is going to do it. We have Herbie being totally betrayed. And then we have Louise looking blankly at her mother. And then
sitting
putting
down.
on the dress.
Yeah. Like looking blankly and then just
putting
walking
her hair
to
up.
the vanity.
First of all, putting her hair up perfectly in 3 seconds. I was like, Natalie, what?
I don't think she actually did that, Adam.
No,
I think she might have gone off stage.
She's incredible.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Putting on the blue dress.
Yeah. So the question...
When she makes that first decision of wanting to do it for her mother, do you think she already knew that it would also kind of fulfill something in her, that she could be a star for the first time after building up, 2 weeks, getting these line roles, getting, hearing from the girls about like, being a star? Or do you think it's like she puts on the dress and that's when it...
I don't think that she thinks about herself at all when she decides to do it.
Yeah, I don't think it's until the end.
I think
until she's famous.
Yes. I think the burlesque is what gives her the confidence to start feeling like her own self, but because that's an entire montage sequence and then we just go like into the end, later, that's when you like finally see the first version of her that's aware of herself.
I think that she knows the power of the word star for her mother, and she makes the decision to do it entirely based on what she knows that her mother wants. And my question is a really good one, and I immediately forgot what it was. Do you think on some level when Louise tells her mom that they should stay, do you think there's also any part of her who knows that this might be the end point?
I think a little bit there is, because I think Louise knows that this is the closest thing that she'll ever get to like her actually getting what she's been working for all this time. So I think there is a bit for Louise, like this will finally like make her happy. Like this is it. This is the answer.
There's something about Louise's reaction where she is just so still and then slowly gets up and goes to the dressing room.
Yeah.
That I think on some level, I was like, she's not shocked that this happened. There's something about it where she felt I don't think she let herself truly believe that her mom was going to get married to Herbie that day.
Because if it wasn't this evening, it would have been the next morning where she would be like, hey, I just heard a hot tip that we can take the girls here or whatever.
Yeah, because just because they had gotten married, that doesn't even mean that they had to then go like live on a farm in Seattle or whatever. Like,
no, he's going to be selling candy. They can live forever.
Right.
Yeah, there is a thing in old movies that like marriage means an absolute 180 in lifestyle in a way that just does not really compute to how society works nowadays.
Okay. Also, there's a line that Herbie has in the scene where he's like, I think he just says, I just wanted you to be my wife. And I was like, see, Herbie, I was on your side until we were just like, it drew it down to that one sentence, but okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that Louise like is open. I think what you said earlier about like that she's totally taken in with the burlesque dancers to do the number for her, that she tells her mother to stay. Like, I don't think RJ is still that it's for her. I don't think she thinks that it's going to give her something, but I think that she becomes more and more open to like the environment of where she is. And that she on some level knows, even when she first tells her mom, like, we need the paycheck, that like, there's a possibility that the paycheck is eventually going to come from the burlesque part of the burlesque.
Yeah.
Well, and also I think there's a very common thing that happens in oldest children, especially oldest daughters, where they take on some mothering responsibility. And that's why I really like that scene before Mama. If Mama was married, sorry, thank you. Where she is like taking care of June. And that's when she realizes that June is like just as unhappy.
Frustrated as she is.
Yeah. And I think to some extent she is helping take care of Rose in these scenes in Wichita where she's like trying to make everything better. I also think there's a level with Rose too, with the marriage, going back to the Herbie of it all, where like she has fully embraced this identity of who she is as like, I don't think she would call herself like dominant, overbearing mother, but like that's what she is. And that's, I think she's proud of the fact that she's able to get things done. And I think what really scares her with Herbie is the idea of like leaving it all behind. And then who is she if she just becomes like a wife and like goes and lives and does nothing anymore? Like who does she become? Who is Rose at that point? Because that's not a person she knows.
And look, I do think Rose is basically a villain, but I don't want that for her still.
Right. No, I think that's the thing is like no one should be stuck with that choice. That shouldn't be like, it's this or that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the feminine mystique, baby.
And honey, that's what Betty Friedan said.
Yes.
Okay. So can we talk about the fucking burlesque now, Molly?
Fine. We talk about it now.
It was great. It was a good scene.
It was really good. No, so I'll play a little bit of the slow version of Let Me Entertain You.
Let me entertain you. Let me make you smile. Let me do a few tricks, some old and then some new tricks. I'm very versatile.
Have a real good time, yes sir. We'll have a real good time.
I love that as the montage progresses, the costumes get more and more beautiful. And like you can tell simply by the costumes that she's like making money and doing super well. They do allude to it also in the intros for each new place they go. Like I think by the
title
end,
gets a little better.
her title gets better.
Tighter gets better.
Tighter gets better.
Mm-hmm.
But the costumes, I think, especially in the montage, are really, really good. They're really, really cool.
I agree with the costumes. I was a little disappointed that the very last one, I think, she does she opens the curtain for a second and you see her in basically like a sparkly bikini kind of thing. And I was like, ooh, I feel like that was like a hair more than I wanted them to actually ever show of her, because the whole bit of her is that she never actually strips. And yes, like obviously like a bathing suit level
she's
coverage.
wearing like a Sasha Colby bejeweled moment where it's like it could be an illusion, a nude
just
illusion,
like Sasha Colby.
Yes, and that's what I think what they were referencing. I just felt like going out in like basically a bra and panties in the 30s is still, I think when the movie started, it's like the 50s or 60s
is wild.
60s when they made it. It felt like it was a little too overtly sexual. Like I wanted the bit to be a little bit stronger of like, you literally never see anything.
Yeah.
And so I thought they took it like a hair too far with it. I would have loved it if she like never took off a gown even, but I do like the, like, I take it off, but there's like a,
I know I'm been naked behind this. Yeah.
I only know the iconic Laura Benanti one where she has this huge hat and she holds the hat in front of herself, and then fully you are understood to imagine that she is like fully naked behind it, but only is behind the hat the whole time. And then I think the lights cut out and she like drops the hat and runs off stage or something like that. But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Or like, did she ever show like her full back? I'm trying to remember.
Well,
was that one of them?
She shows she like turns around and you watch her like unzip.
Unzip.
Yeah, that's what I'm remembering too.
I
but I don't know.
I like the way you have to unzip is like this specific hand. It looks like a cartoon.
I did think it was really cool to like do basically two montages at once, where it's like showing a little more like from the act, obviously like more confident she's getting, but then also
a little more.
This is burlesque. But then also showing
made a reference to burlesque.
I know, it took us 2 hours in, but it also montages the evolution of how successful she's gotten to.
I also want to commend this movie, and I think the show in general for
once, I think in the first time in this podcast.
I wish someone would say something nice about this. Okay. And I'll be the first. That this and obviously it's written based on the person who made a career off this living. So I can understand that why would they do this, but this doesn't have a negative take. I don't even know if it has like a positive take, but it doesn't have a negative take on like burlesque and stripping. Like it really doesn't look down on Gypsy Rose Lee as like a character or performer. Like it's not. I think Rose has her own issues with the fact that she is a famous burlesque performer, but I think that's more because she always envisioned this like vaudeville life,
specific vaudeville,
right, which, and then they were like, oh, there's the rift between the burlesque and the vaudevillians, and I was like, okay. I'm gonna take their word for it. I don't know.
I think it's so brilliant the way that they set up this concept of being a lady and Rose being the one committed to it, because it's like the choice to do the burlesque is understood through the lens of how it is a choice against Rose's principles and Rose's expectations up to this point, but not so much societally, right? Like we don't see like a leery guy. We don't see somebody disrespect her in the bar after the show or what, like there's no sense of the thing that is wrong with this is how she's going to be treated generally. It's like so focused on that relationship with Rose.
Yes. But also I think the thing too with Rose is like, the fact that she sees it as like such like a moral failing for these like women to be burlesque performers, but herself is like obviously morally confused, and also like is like not willing to settle down and like lead a traditional lifestyle. So on one hand, like isn't doing the same kind of thing she would purport to be doing. But I also like that it's married with these like, as the Bible says quotes, even though they're never things from the Bible. They're just like random like sayings that that like, or just what's the term, like idioms or stuff like that, but they have nothing to do with the Bible, but she'll just put as the Bible says.
It's all part of like, it's just another thing.
It's so performative.
It's just another elk medal, or it's just another thing to get her.
It's another thing that she knows women can wield specifically as like women are the moral compass. Typically, they're seen in society as the moral compass, especially in a time where, I mean, the 30s were in the fucking prohibition, which was like created by suffragettes, basically. And it's all intertwined.
It was really the reverse. It was that women organized in order to get prohibition passed, and then said, "Wait a second, we've got all this political, like we've got these political organizations going already," and it kind of inspired the suffragette movement.
Right. Yeah, it's the other way around. Yeah.
I think again, like I think we're going back to what we talked about earlier about like, which makes sense, like sexualization and like the fact that Rose really eschews the idea of like being sexualized, and I think that I believe so.
I have never said it out loud. This is the second time this week I've done this. What was the other time?
Bahamian.
There's two words I've now learned this week that I've never known how to pronounce, so I've never said them out loud.
I don't think I would know how to say Bahamian necessarily either. So there you go. Rose eschews the idea of like being sexualized at all in the performance and like kind of in general. And I do think it's very connected with her choice to remain single, because I think that she sees that there's danger in, if I'm viewed as a woman who's like remaining, making an active choice to remain a single mother and also am sexualized, like I'm really going to lose all my power. Right. And so I think that it's really a choice that she feels like she has to make. But then what's interesting is that she is so quick to compromise that when she sees the opportunity for stardom.
She's the opportunity to be a star. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we got to the ending. We got to the final scene.
Rose's turn.
To the ending. A true 11 o'clock number.
It's Rose's turn.
It is like, this is the definitive 11 o'clock number.
Because it is 11 o'clock. The show is almost over.
But doesn't there need to be an additional finale for something to be an 11 o'clock?
No, I think I don't know. I feel like the original meaning of 11 o'clock number was like this, where it's like, it really is at the end.
Because Last Midnight is, to me, Last Midnight is the cleanest 11 o'clock. And then
it's the big show-stopping song. Listen. It's essentially just a term for the big song at the late second act.
Okay.
In which a major character, often the protagonist, comes to an important realization. Examples include So Long Dearie, Hello Dolly, If You Walked Into My Life, Mame, Rose's Turn, Gypsy, Work the Wound, Passing Strange, Cabaret.
I'm not saying it's not an 11 o'clock. What I'm trying to say is it's not the purest example, because I think the purest example would have an additional finale. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not saying it's not 11.
I always thought it's because it around this time it would happen at 11 o'clock, which it is. But in my mind, I was thinking because shows start at 8 and 11 is like the final number. But back in the day, show started at 8:30, not at 8, right? That's what the Wikipedia just said. So
what?
Yeah, performances would start at 8:30. The song would occur at 11. So yeah, it is the penultimate.
Yes.
Penultimate.
So Rose, it's your turn.
It's your turn, Rose.
It's your turn, Rose.
Play your card, Rose.
Speak
it's
up,
your turn.
Speak up, Rose.
Speak up,
Sing
Rose.
out, Rose.
Sing out, Rose.
The scene heading into it is so an example of like a perfectly written for stage scene where like the tension, it starts. The fact that she comes in and sees the sign on the wall that says, "Do not let Gypsy Rose Lee's mother in here." And so you start off by being like, well, this is going to be it, isn't it? It's this like feeling of foreboding or dread that like it's all going to come to a head finally.
And then it's a beautiful dressing room.
Huge.
There are roses where she takes one of them and then clips it and tapes it to her lapel. Like,
because they're Louise's roses, but she still feels like she is entitled to.
She created all of this.
Yes.
So she is ultimately the person.
It's like such a symbol of, I mean, it's obviously a symbol because it's a rose, but like on top of that.
Because that's her name.
That's her name. Molly, her name is Rose. Did you know her? And that's why everything's coming up roses. It's like a reference to her name. It's just a reference to her name.
But no, everything's coming from Rose is just a phrase. It's not.
It's both.
On the Bible,
things can be two things.
It's a phrase from the Bible.
Two meanings to one word.
Okay, so they have this fight.
Yes.
And
I mean, scene study, girl. I mean,
good.
it just the way it escalates in a way that you already know, even if you didn't know, even if this is the only scene that you saw in this movie, you knew exactly what's happening. You know exactly what's going on.
I love that Louise is learning French and she says "abiento" when she gets off the phone. And she was like, I guess that was a bit much. Sorry.
But there is a sense of like I don't want to skip the whole song, but there is something about the progression of Louise to this point that she feels justifiable for obviously what she casts her mother off, but then also justifiable that like she can be emotionally immature to potentially still keep Rose in her life after this blow up.
It's such an interesting, there's like this push and pull with Louise in the scene of like both sometimes being like so dismissive of her mother and showing like, I so don't have to care about your opinion, but then also sometimes kind of still placating her.
She still has to give a little bit to her so that she doesn't feel totally, she knows what she's afraid of. Like she knows that Rose is grasping at the straws here to make sure that she has
pity
relevant
for her mother.
Yeah.
I just think there is such a wealth of complexity within. And I think this is why they're used so often in media and storytelling. But like the mother-daughter relationship above all others is so fascinating to me because if it's not good, it's like almost always terrible. It's like I don't want to speak to all women and all mothers and all daughters.
You do it so well, Adam. You know,
but I'm going to
off the tongue for you.
I think that like there are obviously many examples of like fathers and listen. You want to talk about fathers and sons?
I'd rather not.
I don't need to cry. But I think like there is again in this idea of like the roles that societally allow women to have. There is a what am I trying to say? There can start to feel for some mothers who are insecure about their own position in like society at a point where they stop being seen as like an object of desire and only as a mother, where I think they start to feel like competition with their daughters to some degree. And I think like there was like this whole, I only bring this up because like this week there was like this viral video of like this mom who was talking about how she was like something about, I think it was a daughter talking about like how her mom like flirts with her boyfriend or something like that and like felt weird by it and blah, blah, blah. And like, I think there's just a lot of complexity in these relationships where, because
women are
told that they are only to be viewed as, in not correspondence, but like in tangentially with like whatever man role is in their life. But if you don't have one, then like where you're like a free agent, basically. Anyway, that I thought was interesting that it touches on that to some degree. But I've lost the thread.
I think let me lift up some of what you said there, Adam. So I think that you're right that like I don't think I can think of any friends that I have who, if you ask them about their mom, they would be like, I have a neutral relationship with my mom, right? Like, I think very much so that women tend to either have a really close relationship with their mom or it's really contentious, it's really complicated. I think, and I mean, maybe that's true of parents. Like, I don't know many people who are like, I just feel like fine about my parents. Like, I don't have any complicated feelings, right? But I do think that, there's something about the mother-daughter relationship that's like, you got to have strong feelings one way or the other. And I think what's interesting about this scene and going back to her not marrying Herbie is how I think that probably some of Rose's concern about getting married is how it would make her lose power and agency. And then, so it's sort of like she makes this decision of put Louise in the star role. Don't go with the becoming a wife and mother, or she's a mother. Don't go with the becoming a wife narrative. Pursue the stardom, right? But then she's kind of betrayed in that decision because she loses her power through that choice too. It's almost like it is this like Greek tragedy, inevitable, right? It's like she would have tragically lost her power regardless of which choice she made in that scene about whether or not to put Louise into the show. So I think that is perhaps what prompts the Rose's turn number is the realization that this is somehow inevitable, that she was going to lose her agency at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, even throughout the whole thing, any kind of comment that Herbie made that like, well, you know, these girls are gonna have to grow up someday and like basically live their own lives, she like fully averted. Like, so she was all
She shut it down. She said, no, they won't.
Yeah. So she always knew that like it was coming and tried so hard to fully avoid it.
And that's why she felt so betrayed by June.
Yes.
Because she was living her own life.
It all
June,
comes
it's all about
back to June.
Sorry, Louise. It is still all about June.
There is this other thing that I haven't talked about that I think is like another huge aspect of the show that I think is really interesting, which is like meritocracy of art. And like Rose is obsessed with this idea that like people who are good enough are going to make it. And she refuses to see that like circumstance can lead you to the place that you're at, which is like so funny that's why it's so important that she just happens to overhear this conversation to get Louise to the position that she gets to by the end of the show, where like in Rose's turn, she sings "You either got it or you ain't." And the whole show has continuously told Louise that she has no talent, but the line that the photographer in the boudoir like says to her is, "Show us your talent." And then she like smiles for the camera, and that's when we cut to the next scene. And I just think that there's like a very interesting.
What is talent? Like talent comes in many forms. Like it could be like star power or like a presence, like what I think Rose, what Louise ultimately like develops, or like June, who was like
a naturally gifted,
yeah. But that's the whole thing is like it's not that you've got it or you ain't. Louise learns how to get it. That's her whole arc, is learning how to get it.
Yes.
And but Rose still believes, and I think maybe that's like a part of her resentment is like, I had it the whole time and Louise had to like figure it out. But like she's the one that's a star. Yeah.
Like there's the resentment that like she could have figured it out too. Like if this whole thing played out when, you know, for her.
I'm reading through the rest of my notes to make sure that that was the last one I wanted to talk about.
I mean, it's a tour de force, this song. My God.
So
yeah. Okay. And then so it really ends with who did you do this for? Who do you think I did this for? Isn't that the line? And then she says, "I thought you did it for me, Mama."
No, yeah. Where she's like, "Who did you think I?" Or like you did.
What did I do it for? I thought you did it for me, Mama.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a good line. It's just so, in true essence, like fully revert back to the little Louise. What would you say to little Louise now? Like it became that moment of, I thought this was always about making one of us happy and be a star like that. Even if the kids truly wanted that as their happiness or not. Yeah. At the base level, they always knew as kids, because that's what she was telling them, that like, this will be for you because you are talented and you deserve to be a star.
And I'm glad how this movie calls out how parents sometimes are selfish and justify it through the fact that they have children.
Yeah.
I feel like you hear a lot of people being like, well, I had to do this thing to feed my family. And I'm like, okay, well, like a lot of people have families, and that's not like a unique thing about you. And so you can't just like make morally corrupt choices all the time just because you have children to also provide for.
It's not
no, I'm not saying there's never a time. Obviously, it's very morality is very complicated. Yeah. But I think it is interesting to say, like, I think in Rose's like top layer of her mind, I feel like we're sounding very psychological. I'm like not interested in armchair diagnosing, even though I keep like calling her narcissist and talking about like levels of awareness or whatever.
I know. Anyway, we're the people that we get annoyed by like online, like, okay, you can't just throw out, you can't just diagnose.
I'm using narcissistic as like a descriptor of behavior and not as like a diagnosis. But like, I think that like, if you asked Rose through most of this movie, like, who are you doing this for? She would have said
she's
for
doing
her
it for the
children,
girls.
right? Like that is her belief on like the top level of her awareness is that she's doing it for her children. And then it is Louise calling her out and saying like, because like, do you think Louise doesn't think that she did it for her, right? Like I think Louise knows what she's doing by saying that. Or I don't know, or maybe she's just feeling sad. I'm not totally sure.
I think she just always knows that like at a base level, she's already made it. Even if it wasn't like this level. I mean, through the montage, whether it was 2 performances before, but at this moment now, she's like, I am happy. I am successful. I am famous. I am a star now. And you're still here. And you still keep wanting to feel like there's something more that we can do.
I'm confused about your response to what I just said, but I think that all of those things are true.
No,
I'm saying,
that I think that now you confused me of what I was going to say. That
Does Louise believe that Rose did it for her, or is she skewering Rose with that comment?
Yeah, that was my question.
Does Louise believe that Rose actually did it for her?
Yes. Does she believe, I thought you did it for me, Mama? Does she believe what she says, or is she saying it to get back at her mother?
I think she used to believe that. I think she doesn't believe that anymore for a while. Like, I think it was through the experience of her being a star. At this point, she's finally able to actually say what she's known for a while now.
I think she currently does not think it, but I think that's why she puts it in the past tense and says, I thought you did it for me, Mama.
Oh, girl, right.
Come on, writing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you have to say that, you would have to say, I thought you did it for me, Mama, anyway.
Yeah.
Because that's how the English language works. But also,
there's 2 meanings?
There's 2 meanings to one word?
There's 2 meanings to one word. I think she is informing her that at one time in my life, I thought you were doing it for me.
Yeah.
Wow. Yes. And Rose realizes that can't be true because she would be happy now.
But in the delivery of that line is how you know that she does not believe that anymore.
Yes, exactly.
Which I think this scene... Honestly,
she's already moving on.
Rosalind Russell should have been nominated for an Oscar. It's crazy that she was not nominated. This scene should have been why Natalie Wood was nominated, because she is,
because she's already already doing the game. Like, she's already like, I'm in the middle of a photo shoot and I'm still having this conversation with you because it's like, I've already made that piece that like this was not. I've already made that decision. You know
doesn't she have a line earlier in the scene where she says, "Do you want to finish it?" Like, she's like, this is finally going to be the big fight. Like, you can feel that they needle each other so often. And she has had it with just towing the line of this conversation. I am ready to go and do the whole thing with you. I'm done.
Yeah.
And she tells her that she never wants to see her again.
Okay. We have to talk about the tone of how she says, I thought you did it for me. Because
this is its own separate podcast. She could this one line. This
podcast is just called I Thought You Did It For Me, Mama. Okay, so here are options. Here are options how it could have been. So you could do it in like a bitchy way. You could be like, I thought you did it for me, Mama. Of like, where you like, you're almost like, of course, but like, it's because you're like showing that you know that it's not that.
You're saying it to like hurt her, like genuinely to be like.
You could do it if it was like she still thought that. She could say it like a desperate pleading way.
Yeah.
Right. Of like,
please
please convince me that you did it for me.
Yeah. Or like, look at yourself. Like, come on. Look at what you're doing right now.
You could do it in like actual anger of like, I thought you did it for me. Like, of like, I've come so far around on it and it's so clearly not true, whatever. But she chooses this simple, sad tone where you realize like, it's not just that she's realizes it's not true. She's not even like hurt anymore on some, like, she just feels sad for Rose.
Yes.
She feels sad for Rose. And girl, if there's anything that could devastate you more than your child feeling sad for you, or the pain you caused them.
Yeah.
The pain you caused me, I realize now it's more about your pain than mine.
Yes.
Even.
I think also it has to be, but I think, yes, there are a bunch of different ways you could read this line beautifully, but I think that is...
And now we will perform
now each of us are going to do our 4 interpretations of this line. I think that is the correct version because it has to lead to what happens after Rose's turn, which is a sort of peace offering reconciliation moment.
Because she knows truly what
she has to be past the anger. This can't be new information.
Yes.
She cannot just learn this because you would never be able to get over it. This has to be a point in her life where she has accepted this maybe years ago. And she's just like been like waiting for...
Honestly, I think since when she was like taking charge of the girls when she became the production manager. Like, I felt like there was something like...
We've decided she's the SM.
Yeah, where she became the SM.
Yeah.
I genuinely think that she's like, it's not about this, the craft or like trying to get... it was always about that chase. Not truly actually helping. Because she's doing everything. She's making it harder for them to actually make a living off of it. To like be successful at it.
Yeah.
Well, and she has to know when Rose turns her attention to June, or just from June to her.
Yeah.
But
Right?
it's not an instantaneous understanding of your relationship with someone else either. It would be built over time where you'd start to reflect and look back and be like,
see the
oh my God, the puzzle pieces start to fall together.
What's the first chisel in that facade? I think that when it was June, she really believes that June's got this thing. And like, that's what it's about is June.
I think it's everything's coming up roses.
Yeah. And that's what
let me
finish my thought.
Well, you asked me a question.
What was the question?
When was the first chisel?
When was the first chisel?
No, I didn't phrase it as a question. In my head, it wasn't a question. I said, I think that the first chisel was. So,
well, I think you could say it 4 ways. I think one way you could say it like a discovery.
I think the first chisel.
I think it never is the fact that Rose is so easily able to turn and say, now it's going to be all about you.
Rose's
turn.
That's why I wasn't sure for a moment which one that would be the title of, because it would also make sense for it to be, it's a real turn in everything's coming present. I think that's the beginning of Louise being able to realize, okay, it's all about her. It's not about me at all, because obviously she doesn't believe that I have this thing that needs to get out in the world or whatever. I think what's interesting is more the question of like, when does she get to the point where she realizes that And is able to like, right, like we're talking about like coming out of the anger too, because I guess you are saying maybe it's by the time she's in SM, she's already like fully come around on this, but like why
I don't
stay? Know, like why stay? Yeah, why stay? Why make the argument about the money if you don't think that on some level your mom still wants it?
I think she would have fully understood this in a time that we did not see, but after she has become famous.
Yeah,
I feel like the note of on the board of Gypsy Rose Lee's mother is not allowed in the venue is she's the star of the show. She would be able to say, you have to let my mother in here. They're not going to say no to her if her dressing room looks like that. I think it's her note. I think she told them, I don't want her in here anymore.
I think so too. And I think that that's a crazy thing to do, because to have a note and not have anybody enforcing it is like, it's obviously not going to work out, girl.
Right. Yeah.
I guess maybe it's just being passive aggressive.
It's like the signs at the pools at a hotel that are like, shower before you get in the pool. Nobody's showering before they get in the pool.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you.
Yeah.
So dump the chlorine in this.
I guess though, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I guess it's like the backstage. So it's like announcements to the crew. So I guess it was supposed to be not that Rose would see it, but that somebody would see it and then actually stop her. Yeah. Okay.
Well, glad we took care of that.
I also, so words mean two things.
Oh,
we're discovering.
Okay.
I only had thought of Rose's turn as like, it's Rose's chance.
Right.
Not Rose's turn.
Yeah.
It's both.
It is.
Both.
Words they're homonyms.
Homonyms.
No, they're just this.
Homonyms are two words that sound the same, like pair and pair.
Oh yeah, so not homonym.
Yeah.
Though that's just two different meanings.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if there is a word for it. Yeah, I think just many words have multiple definitions. So there's maybe not a term for it. But yes, I think it's absolutely that, because I think that it's Rose's change as a character.
Yeah.
Being able to understand and come to terms with the fact that she did do it for herself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's all about.
Are we ready to ask the final question?
Okay. I think I know what the final question is, but hit me.
You play the next Mama Rose. What is the ending decision that you make?
Isn't it funny that she is never referred to in this movie or musical as Mama Rose? She's referred to as Mama, and she's referred
as Mama Rose in the culture.
Yes.
It's like, I just saw a clip of the fact that Annie Murphy said that she only said the words "you, David" twice in Schitt's Creek, but she says like, David, or like she says like a bunch of different exclamations with the word David, but "you, David" is the one that's like taken off as if she says it a million times in the show. Okay. Anyway.
What's the creative decision that you make to end?
The way that I was going to phrase this question, it's the same question, but the way I was going to phrase it is, does she deserve forgiveness at the end?
I don't think it's as black and white as forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not a Christian.
Which I think is...
You're not a Christian. We've done this whole podcast to expose you.
The first time we've never brought up religion on this podcast. And I really
get it in there.
I had to get it in.
I really don't think, I think at the maturity that Louise is in at the end of the movie, and honestly, like also someone in like his early 30s, I don't think I would have said the same question if you asked me this, like if we watched and analyzed this in college. I think in college I would be like, no, absolutely not. I really don't think it's as, you know, cut and dry as like forgiving her, but as more of like understanding that she is a flawed person and that she was flawed this entire time. But at the end of the day, she still took care of her in her way that I don't think excuses all of the bad behavior, but I think Louise is already at a point where she's already made peace with all of that.
You can't give forgiveness when it has not been asked for, because she has never asked for forgiveness from Louise. So Louise cannot forgive someone who has not asked for it. However, what Louise can do is recontextualize her relationship with her mother and understand what, and this is like full therapy talk. I hate to sound
she's like giving her boundaries, basically.
But like
she's
you really have to set what your
new relationship.
Yes.
It's like this is now our new relationship. And it seems like at the end in the movie version, Rose is like coming to terms with it, because it's like maybe you do give me something to do. Maybe that is something.
And I think there is like a beauty in I just got weirdly emotional. I think there is a beauty in the grace that she offers her mother.
Yes.
In like a kindness, and even though she has just said to her that she never wants to see her again, just like I don't know why it just hit me so hard. But the just like it's
their mothers.
It's also my mom and I do not have a relationship like this at all.
We are not in any way claiming that any of our mothers are like this.
No, not in any way.
Not at all.
But I can only imagine like the mother relationship to child, no matter the gender, is so historically, culturally, for millennia, is like the most important relationship you have allegedly until you have children, because even your own partner is typically usurped by your relationship to the people that you give birth to or procreate.
And Adam believes you can only have children by giving birth to them.
I think that's
He's
true.
on the record for that.
And I think I'm coming out as adoption is ill on society.
So fuck you, Auntie Mame.
But I think that I think for a lot of people that have relationships with their mothers that are not, maybe less than ideal, I think it's harder because it is supposed to be this like warm thing that is always like steadfast and stalwart and never wavers, and like your mother would do anything for you. And if it's not that, then like you are left, you are orphaned almost. You are left without a guide to go through the world. And I think that's so incredibly heartbreaking, but she's still able to do it. And I think if you can even get to that point, it's a miracle. And then to even take yourself past that and still extend a hand out to the person that you know has like damaged you in a real way, but didn't maybe necessarily do it with malicious intent, like intentionally maliciously, but you can still maybe not look past it, but contextualize them with that understanding, then I think that's even more beautiful. And why I think like it's so crazy that she's a character, that she's a stripper. And I don't mean that to say like they're less whatever, nothing about the comment of it, but morality, like the fact that this comes out in 1962 when there's no way, like there's a bunch of movies being made about strippers where we're like pro stripper. Like I just think it's like wild that
it is beautiful.
It really makes her, it almost like has a weird parallel to like, oh, you want to go religion? Mary Magdalene? Hey.
I mean, that was beautiful, Adam, what you said about grace and forgiving her and stuff. And I just want to add that I think that part of why people are so fascinated by toxic mothers is the expectation that mothers are meant to be unbelievably nurturing, right? And so it's like when someone has a bad father, it's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of a roll of the dice of whether or not you're going to have a good father. But like, we think that all mothers should be good at being mothers because that's what we think women are just like naturally nurturing and forgiving and self-sacrificing.
Because their body is made to be a mother. They should also know how to mother, which are two
in a way that like men's
things,
bodies aren't made to also create children. Great.
Yeah.
No, they're made to nut.
Oh. Sorry.
God. Children. No, it's just like such a dumb argument because it's like to have a biological child without science, you need two parts, buddies, and like both bodies are made to make children. Anyway, I think that what's also really tragic though about mothers is the way that people kind of outgrow them in this way that I think that we don't tend to think of outgrowing our fathers, because I think that in the very traditionalist patriarchal society, fathers' roles are to teach you more about being an adult, and that mothers are there to nurture you when you're so small and you can't take care of yourself, and that you grow out of the need for that nurturing element of parents, but you don't grow out of the need for the guidance element of parents. And so I think that again connects to Rose's like anxiety about becoming without use, and the tragedy of she doesn't lose her agency through getting married, but she does end up losing her agency still through Louise being successful and then no longer needing her. And then she has to learn a new relationship. And I think what's beautiful about the way that they choose Grace in this ending is the fact that it does seem like it's going to be a new relationship, like Rose or that Louise is resetting the relationship and Rose is kind of accepting that. And I think that is the most human and optimistic option. And I guess it kind of just depends on the day, honestly, if that's the one that I want to see or not.
I know. Yeah. I think all the ones that I talked about earlier, the different variations that they've created over time are all very interesting in different ways.
Yeah. Do you want to be sick to do a show where the actors got to pick every night which way it was going to end?
How it feels natural, like in your portrayal of that relationship and how it's played out
in that
the entire performance.
Yeah.
Do you reach out a hand? Who feels more, yeah, that'd be really interesting. I think I'm more inclined to, I think there's something about both living together that still like holds stronger for me.
Huh?
I like both leaving together.
Leaving together.
Okay, yeah, we both
heard living
together.
I was like,
yeah.
Is that a song?
That they move in together. No, like I think something about leaving together kind of seals that deal of like they're able to still have a relationship, even though it might not be the same that Rose thought or Louise thought, but they're able to find something.
The fact that the shot ends with them not just walking out the door, but like walking away from the camera, walking away from the action that had just happened, like really cementing that they are putting this ostensibly behind them in like a visual kind of way.
And also walking away from the action in terms of like away from the stage and the part of the relationship that's about the stage. Oh, it's making me think of Fleabag and the second season. If you've never seen Fleabag, you have to watch it and turn this off for 30 seconds. No, I'm telling the listeners.
Just watch the whole thing now.
I'm going to spoil it for you too. I don't care. But I'm going to not spoil it for the listeners. Okay, turn it off for 30 seconds. But the fact that when she finally sleeps with the priest and then she like turns the camera away and how it's all like a metaphor for like how she's like actually experiencing the moment instead of like having to have the commentary about it and like be observed doing it. Such a good show. Okay. Anyway, I think that that's a really interesting idea of like they're literally like they're walking away from a physical stage and they're like leaving the camera and they're like, let's go and like have a relationship that's like about two of us people that's in no way for the consumption of performance.
Yes. Yeah, Adam. It's not always about this podcast, Adam. We can also have a relationship outside of this podcast.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I'm not trying to put you two on blast, but anyway.
Okay. Any final thought? I thought
you did it for me.
Any
Oh, who did you do this podcast for? That's my closer. Who did you do the podcast for?
Adam did this for Adam.
I did this for me, and I've been clear about that from the get-go.
Very clear from day one.
Is there anything else that people feel like we have not talked about? The only thing I want to say is Chowsy has to be the oldest living dog on Earth.
Chowsy. It was truly shocked that the Chowsy stayed alive that entire time.
Chowsy is the Yorkie?
Yes, because even at the end, she was like, oh, I got to get back to Chowsy.
First of all, Yorkies live to be like 11 years old, and then they drop dead.
Well, I think we have to, I think based on Rose's history, we have to consider the possibility that there's been more than one chassis.
She's just renamed.
I didn't even think about that, but you're so right.
Oh no.
One goes, you find the next one and you just put them in the same slot.
Yeah. I've made the half truth, half joke with Adam that like, if we get another dog, it'll be Friedrich too. Like, I'm just
that's disturbing. I would never ever visit you again if you did that.
Oh no! We're naming him Friedrich too.
I could never be in your home if that happened.
Friedrich, the sequel.
What?
Friedrich the sequel. The squeakle.
Molly, anything else? Anything else?
Gosh, I feel like we've analyzed every inch of this musical.
Every little inch.
We really did it.
She ate. She left no crumbs. I truly feel that she worked.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, slay.
Anytime she made a crazy decision, you're just like, she's crazy, but honestly, work.
Okay. I think I've come around and I think this is a good movie.
There you go. The writing.
I don't know if I'd want to watch it a bunch, but I do think it's a good movie.
Yeah.
We just have to rewatch the Everything's Coming Up Roses scene.
Why did I do it? What did it get me? Scrapbooks full of me in the background. Give them love, and what does it get you? What does it get you? One quick look as each of them leaves you. All your life, and what does it get you? Thanks a lot, and out with the garbage. They take bows, and you're batting zero. I had a dream. I dreamed it for you, June. It wasn't for me, Herbie. And if it wasn't for me, just where would you be, Miss Gypsy Rose Lee? Will someone tell me, when is it my turn? Don't I get a dream for myself? Starting now, it's gonna be my turn. Gangway world, get off of my runway. Starting now, I bet 1,000. This time, boys, I'm taking the bows. And everything's coming up roses. Everything's coming up roses. Everything's coming up roses. This time for me. For me. For me. For me. For me. For me. For me.
So I only found one review for the original film that was not some shitty dude bro in like a bad movie blog review. And I'm not, whatever. So this is the Variety review from 1962. You can tell it's the official Variety review because it's written by who? Staff. Back when people just didn't get credit. Also, you know who's uncredited in this movie? All of the boys in this film
That's tragic.
are all uncredited.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because they're like, have parts and they're in songs. Like, it's not like they're chorus people. Okay. Variety. This movie has 64% on Rotten Tomatoes. The review says, I'm going to read the whole thing. There is a wonderfully funny sequence involving 3 nails-hard strippers, which comes when Gypsy has been unreeling about an hour. What does that mean? The sequence is thoroughly welcome and almost desperately needed to counteract a certain Jane one-note implicit in the tale of a stage mother whose egotisms become something of a bore despite the canny skills of director-producer Mervyn LeRoy to contrive it otherwise. Rosalind Russell's performance as the small-time brood hen deserves commendation. It is you also know it's the 1962 review because they said brood hen. It is cleverly managed all the way with much help from the camera angles of Harry Stradling Sr. Russell is less surprising than Carl Malden as the mother's incredibly loyal lover who finally screams when he perceives that she cares for nobody and nothing except her own ego compulsions.
Writing that they find Herbie more compelling than Rose is, I'm so offended.
About Natalie Wood, it is not easy to credit her as a stripper, but it is interesting to watch her, under LeRoy's guidance, go through the motions in a burlesque world that is prettied up in soft focus and a kind of phony innocence.
Only one part of that movie you were interested in caring about Natalie Wood. Interesting, sir.
Any resemblance of the art of strip and its setting to reality is, in this film, purely fleeting.
And he was sure disappointed.
In this review. There are some beguiling satirical touches in the recreation of the hokey vaudeville routine starring Baby June Havoc, well impersonated by Anne Gillian, whose flight from the mother turns the latter's attention upon the previously neglected sister Louise, the Gypsy Rose of later showbiz. The film, of course, is based upon the autobiography of Gypsy Rose Lee and the 1959 musical comedy in which Ethel Merman starred. More chronicle than musical, there are advantages still in some of the music and lyrics and the choreography. This is the worst review I've ever read. I think this person should be shot for writing this review.
I appreciate the work that you do, Adam, in finding us reviews to read. And I'm sorry it was such a difficult process for this one because this is garbage.
Genuinely, this was the hardest.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Gypsy. This isn't a movie where it's like, oh, I've never heard of it.
Like next week, our YouTube
I don't
video.
know though. Like,
oh yeah, Do Re Mi.
I feel like I wonder how many people. I guess it was fairly popular in the 60s. I wonder how many people who are not musical people would know what this is.
I mean, I guess that's true. Yeah. It just is. It was wild because there's no full reviews online. That was the only one I found. It was also a little bit hard because there's been so many revivals of it that it's like hard to sift through what are we even talking about anymore? But, and then even on Letterboxd, obviously, my Letterboxd reviews, I always try to find funny ones. This is not a surprise. If you've listened to the podcast more than once, you know that that's the bit on the show. But even this one, I had to go through 4 pages of Letterboxd reviews to find 3 like funny little quips about this movie because truly most people... I saw someone who was like, this is the worst 142 minutes I've ever spent in my life. And I was like, what are we talking about? And then there were other ones that were like, Roz Russell is a true gift to the American cinema. And I was like, okay, queen.
I want to know how many of the people who left negative reviews do not like musicals, really, genuinely. I mean, maybe some people love this original and they're like they love the stage show and they feel betrayed by it, but like...
Oh, because this feels so to the book of like a drama, like a theatrical drama. Like it follows such a clear.
I will say, if there's one thing, Letterboxd has a lot of like cinephiles on it. Like that's, whatever.
And if it's a comment on like the film,
I will say this is a filmed stage musical. Like this is not big in any kind of like cinematic sense. Yeah. It does not have scope in that way.
I feel like,
which I like about it, but I understand if you're like a person who puts that above other things, I understand why this would be more frustrating. It's very
similar to Carousel in the level of like, it's just kind of putting it into a film, the baseline filmic language, but it's like soundstage, like not drawing attention to that in the way that like a Little Shop does, but it's very not trying to mimic a real world.
Right. Yeah. So on Letterboxd, this is 3.4 out of 5 stars. Patrick gave it 2 and says, interesting choice to start the movie at the 90-minute mark.
Start the story at the 90-minute mark is what it says, which is
start the story.
Yeah, apt. It's true.
Russman gave it 2.5 stars and said, oh, Christmas tree, you'll ever be undressing.
Cute.
This is how bad this is how bad these reviews are that I had to go with that one.
What's wrong with you, people?
And Luke Pisano gave it 4.5 stars and said, I thought you did it for the gays, mama. Which is the best review. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go on and write something.
Yeah, write something funny, please.
We gotta get these reviews up. What's going on? You're gonna be mad. I'm gonna take her. I'm taking Rosalind Russell.
Okay.
I think it's.
And why?
I just think it's like
about her?
A really understood performance of who this woman is. I think she completely gets this character. I don't think she looks down on this character in any way. but I think she has like really light comic moments that are really good too. It's really nuanced, and her Rose's Turn, even though I know she's not singing it, I'm less precious about that. I think it's really good. I would have been crazy to see Ethel Mervyn in this.
Also made me more sad about the whole Mame situation. Not that Rosalind Russell would have been in the musical version of Mame, but like, I feel like people sort of like when we did the Lucille Ball version, people were like, but have you seen the Rosalind Russell version? And I feel more aware of what I missed out on by not just watching the straight up movie.
I would be interested to see how similar this is to her Auntie Mame.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not similar characters per se, but there is kind of a certain bigness about their exuberance.
Exuberance. What a great word.
RJ, I'm going to let you go next.
Okay.
I'm going in the order that we did the
what?
Earlier.
Okay. The what?
Our backgrounds with the film.
Well, since you gave me the second choice, I was afraid that I would have to come up with a third person. So
that's why I'm worried.
But since I got the second choice, I'm picking Natalie Wood. I think she really, truly nails it. Like, it's even just imagining from Little Lamb to the end of the movie. Like, even if this full movie was just truly from her perspective, like, it would be already just so. I feel like I watched two movies. You know what I mean? Like her story and then Rose's story. And she just gives a full life. Like, it's so good.
Yeah.
And that honestly makes me want to watch more Natalie Wood performances.
And so much of it,
I've only seen two.
Much of this performance is just her reacting.
Yes.
Which is the craziest part. It's not her having like long speeches or anything. It's 90%
just of acting
her
is
staring
reacting.
in horror.
Reacting.
Yeah.
Okay, Molly.
I'm going to give it to whoever blocked Everything's Coming Up Roses.
Everything's Coming Up Roses.
That scene is so good. So I'm just going to say the collective effort of everyone, which is very much what an MVP award is for giving it to a team. I'm just going to say the person who put together
most valuable
people, or the people who put together the way that Everything's Coming Up Roses is blocked.
Tyra Swan is an uncredited person in art department. He was an animator. Tyra Swan, yeah. He was a Disney. I think he was in.
Oh yeah, Bambi, yeah.
My closer, of course, is give one of your co-hosts a burlesque pseudonym. The way that this
should it also include a slur?
I would prefer you avoid slurs. But I think that the way that this one was assigned is it would be a descriptive word about you, your mom's name, and then the first initial of your first name.
Oh, we're
following the Gypsy Risley way of creating a burlesque name.
Okay.
But we have to give them to each other so that they are for the descriptive words, at least. I think rather than assigning them to ourselves, we should give them to each other.
And Lee was her last name?
Well, it was Louise, and then the person messed up the announcement, so they just said Lee instead. So we'll have to do like a initial based shortening.
Okay. Okay. For Adam.
Oh God.
Adam's burlesque name is Jester Nancy Ainsley. Add the A really halted me there. Jester Nan.
Nothing sexier than a jester.
Well, it's a descriptor.
It is. It's a descriptor.
You said descriptor.
I have one for RJ.
Okay.
I think you should be Honey Joy Ray.
Oh my God. Yummy.
You're so like, I feel like honey is a great word for you. Like warm and inviting and like, sweet. So that would be my descriptor for you.
Thank you. And famously, my mother, Joy.
Mary Joy.
Mary Joy. Oh, yeah. I add the Mary for a like a Mary Magdalene.
Oh, number. Yeah. I do love just Honey Mary Joy though. That's nice.
Yeah. Oh, she'll love that. She'll love it. Hey, Mom, I have a persona. I have a burlesque persona named after you. She'll be like, huh?
She'll be like, what took so long?
Finally. And she becomes fully Mama Rose. A star.
Hard to pull a Mama Rose when your kids in their 30s, but I'd love to see someone try.
It's never too late. Okay, Adam.
He can't do it. He has to say one nice thing about me, and he's physically incapable of doing it.
Yes.
I was trying to. I know the first two. I'm trying to figure out how to make your last name.
Her name, Molly.
You could just steal what I did with RJ and just do May. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's gonna be mean.
Like,
it's gonna be mean. I can tell from your smile.
It's not mean. It's just stupid. Dr. Rita May.
Good for burlesque at all.
God.
Okay.
You have to do it's all nurse, doctor kind of.
Yeah, I was about to say like nurse,
sexy nurse,
but you're a doctor.
Yeah, but you're dressed as a nurse, but you are
I'm a legal doctor.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Huge stethoscope.
Huge.
Just like Laura Benanti.
It's the stethoscope is perfectly placed. It just covers the nips.
Yeah. Ooh.
Wow.
I'm sold.
Listen.
I'll show up for the ticket, and you know what? I'll buy the full package. We'll get unlimited drinks throughout the night.
Oh,
is
yeah,
that
we'll do bottle service.
Works?
Yeah, we'll
do
do bottle service. Yeah, or like,
Sure. Who knows?
We don't. We'll buy bottle service for sure.
Who was it in college that did burlesque? What's her name?
Older than us.
She was a senior when we were freshmen. Jerry Toko.
There was also
we'll bleep that name out.
Wasn't like Alexis something? I feel like was the first.
Miché,
yeah, I feel like she was big into burlesque, and then
right.
It was Alexis.
That's right.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think she still does it.
Oh, maybe.
It's like a burlesque persona.
Yeah, we should bleep those names for sure. Okay,
great. I wasn't going to include it at all.
I love that even more.
We got to cut this down somehow.
Yeah. Yikes!
3 hours and 17 minutes.
I was not expecting this from Gypsy, but it's great.
Are we coming up with another one for each?
No.
Or we were just doing one?
I'm just waiting for somebody to start singing a
I
song.
think that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
Everything's coming up, roses and daffodils. Everything's coming up, bright lights and lollipops. Everything's coming up, sunshine and
Santa Claus.
Everything's coming up, roses for me and for you.
Thank you for listening to the best revival of a podcast, Showgays. You can find us on social media. Adam is at Adam Noecker on Twitter. RJ is at RJ Food Rocks on Instagram. And Molly is at Molly Matiny on Instagram. This episode was edited and mixed by Adam Noecker. This has been an Ampliverse production. You can find our show page and more information at theampliverse.com. If you'd like to send us your own takes on the movie we just watched, reach out to us via email and we might read it aloud on the show. Our email is showgaysmoviemusical@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to help others find the show. And now, as always, the show must go on, so stick around to hear what we're going to be watching next episode.
Each time you leave my door, I watch you walk down.
being sweet to you. In the name of love, before you break my heart, break my heart. In the name of love, before you break my heart, take it over. I know your secluded nights. I've even seen her maybe once or twice, but it's her sweet expression that made my love and devotion. But this time before you leave my arms, stop in the name of love before you break my heart. Stop in the name of love before you break my heart. Stop, 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 stop. I try so hard not to be impatient, hoping you stop this infatuation. My God! Yung nagsasabi sa Bombay, sila ka sa TV mo! Stop in the name of love before you break my heart. Stop in the name of love before you... Before you break my heart.
Discovering voices, building worlds. The Ampliverse.